Well, we have made it to Friday. Welcome in. This is Three-Man Front. Pat, Molly, Conrad, Landrum will be back with us on Monday. I know that's been kind of a general theme this week. Plenty to get into today. A lot of basketball talk. That has been the major topic of discussion on this show throughout the week. Whip Sanderson, he's going to join us at the bottom of the hour. Barrett Sallee next hour. Talk a little Braves baseball, spring training. Yaxel Lindeborg, just one of the most outstanding college basketball players in America, and he resides right here in good old Birmingham, Alabama for the UAB Blazers. They got a big win last night. We will talk to him, Blake Lovell from Southeastern 16, and Richard Hendricks, famed Alabama basketball star, now part of the SEC Network. We'll get his take, Conrad, on what's going on in the world of SEC basketball for the weekend. But we start that big win last night by UAB against Wichita State, 80-72, as the Blazers get 29 points. Alejandro Vasquez poured in 29 points off the bench. Didn't even start last night. He shot 11 of 22 from the field. Blazers get their first ever win in Wichita, Kansas. How about that? That's a little fun little nugget for you.
First time for everything, right?
Absolutely. Shockers missed 15 three-pointers last night. So that helped out the cause for the Blazers. But this is the stat that will absolutely blow your mind. UAB outscores Wichita 42-3 off the bench.
Going to win a lot of games doing that.
I mean, like, that's not a real stat.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that
That's
crazy?
amazing.
42-3. Put that in your stat book. That was a good one.
Yeah, I bet you would take that every time you're out there on the floor. But yeah, definitely helps when you get 29 from one of them.
Well, now come on now. Now don't try to dilute the stats.
I'm not. It's an impressive stat.
Just because you went to Alabama and you're against the Extension Center. I mean, come
on. No, very good win for UAB last night. Like you said, going up against a team that had won 6 games in a row. What a weird season for them. They had lost 6 of 7, then they won 6 in a row, and then they host UAB last night, and that was a place that, as we know, Memphis went up to a couple weeks ago and lost, and so for UAB to be able to get that win before heading back to Bartow on Sunday, certainly will have some spirits high, hopefully, here for the next couple of days in Birmingham.
Well, the good news is that the basketball public in the city of Birmingham, they have taken advantage of this incredible matchup coming up on Sunday. That is a 3 o'clock tip-off between UAB and Memphis. It is almost a complete sellout, and the arena is 8,500. That's what it seats. I don't know if the fire marshal will look the other way and maybe get a couple more hundred in there, but that is going to be an electric atmosphere because when you get about 6,000 in there, especially when you get above 8, that is an imposing place to play. I'm not saying it's not Neville Arena. I understand that, but been to a lot of games there. I was a student there right after the arena got opened up, and it is definitely a nice home court advantage when folks come to the games. And all indications are it's going to be a packed house at Bartow on Sunday, so it should be a really, really good matchup.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly what you want. If you're UAB, it's great to know that, you can kind of rally the fan base for these types of games. Everyone understands how monumental it is. Right before you head into your conference tournament, and the pressure really gets ramped up because, right, you're going to have to go and win the conference tournament to find yourself in the NCAA tournament, and getting, in terms of just confidence, I would think, in team morale, getting this win on Sunday would do wonders for you, because then going into the conference tournament, you're looking at it as, well, why are we not the team to beat? I know we may not be the number 1 seed, but we've taken down the best team in the conference. We played really, really well the last couple of months. We have the best player in Yaxel Lindeborg. Who's to say UAB is not going to find themselves as AAC champions yet again?
Well, this team, Andy does an incredible job, especially this time of the year, getting this team firing on all cylinders, and that's what he's got going on right now. So it's Pack Bartow coming up on Sunday. That is a 3 o'clock tip-off. If you can't get a ticket and you want to listen to the game, you can listen to Jocks 2 100.5. That's right. I'll be on the broadcast starting at 2:30. David Crane, Steve Mitchell will be doing the play-by-play. I will be the studio, halftime, and the post-game host. It will be a big one. So hopefully UAB can get that momentum rolling as they head into March Madness.
Is Landrum going to be there, cleaning the floors? Whenever someone falls on the floor, they got to clean it off so no one slips. Is that what Landrum's going to be doing on Sunday?
I do not know his travel itinerary.
Is he even back by Sunday?
I think he's back tomorrow.
Okay.
I think. I've not heard from Landrum in a few days since he was rubbing it in, with all the great pictures and videos he was sending me from how gorgeous it was in Colorado.
I haven't heard from Landrum since 157 last Friday. So
almost like when Conrad didn't contact you over the weekend as you were deathly ill.
Pretty much.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was more worried about his needs, his car.
Well, that's also
flat tire.
important. It is.
See, Molly's reasonable. She's understanding.
Well, I mean, when your own teammate is...
Pat's trying to stir it up on a Friday.
Always.
I would not do that. I would stir it up on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Not on a filthy Friday.
On a Friday. Come on. Samford gets a big win, 95-83 over VMI. Colin Holloway scores 24 points, 7 rebounds, 3 steals. The Bulldogs are now 22-8. They're 12-5 in the SoCon. They are in a second-place tie. They're going to wrap up their schedule tomorrow against North Carolina Greensboro, who is also tied for second place.
It's a quick
SoCon.
turnaround.
It sure is.
Eric Musselman would not be having that.
No, he would not. The SoCon tournament starts next Friday in Asheville, North Carolina. It's here.
Oh, I know.
I mean, conference championship week will begin next week.
I'm telling you, that buzzer beater, that Michigan State Maryland game the other night, that felt like, all right,
like March.
we're here. Yes, we
Yes.
had the big moment. And now, before we know it, I mean, it's crazy to think that, how fast time flies. I mean, 8 days from now, we're going to have Alabama, Auburn again, and then you're going to get into the SEC tournament as well. And it's right around the corner. Selection Sunday is not very far. And it'll be 3 weeks from yesterday will be the first day of the NCAA tournament.
That is crazy. It is definitely here as March comes roaring in starting tomorrow, and Samford and UAB getting things right at the right time. Meanwhile, you mentioned Michigan State and Maryland the other night. Another buzzer beater. Their cross-state rival, the Michigan Wolverines, last night. They were a 9-point favorite against Rutgers. Don't ask me how I knew that. And they were behind, and lo and behold, they get a big 3-point shot. It was a great shot.
It was.
As our president would say, oh, it's great. It was a beautiful shot.
It was the best shot.
It was the best shot I've ever seen. It was huge.
Huge.
Yeah, huge. And so Michigan survives Rutgers. And man, Dusty May, he's got a new contract. He's living right.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Michigan's going to be fighting for, you imagine a 4 seed potentially in the NCAA tournament, a top 15 team in the country right now. And yeah, and it is very cool because obviously, I know a lot of UAB fans maybe didn't feel that way about FAU, but seeing them go on that run to the Final Four was so cool. And for Dusty May to get this opportunity and kind of just take the ball and run with it at a program like Michigan that, remember, this is a Michigan team that 5-6 years ago was playing for a national championship. It wasn't all that long ago. And so to be able to kind of build them back up to that point is impressive. But yeah, that'll get the juices flowing here at the end of the regular season, a buzzer beater in conference play.
Sure will. So Joe Lenardi last night, he was on ESPN and he debuted his top 16. Now we get almost every day now he's updating his bracketology. So last night in his top 16, his number 1 seeds was Auburn in the South, Duke in the East, Bama in the Midwest, and Houston in the West. And I will bring up the Alabama situation because he was asked point blank about the Tennessee game. And he basically said that as of this moment, whoever wins that game will be on the 1 line, the loser. Again, Tennessee's already on the 2 line.
Yes.
But if they beat Alabama, Tennessee is going to replace Alabama. And he also said this, and I'm paraphrasing, but he pretty much said, kind of pause on the thinking that if you go to an SEC tournament and you win a few games, that's going to change the seeding. I believe the cake is being baked as we speak in regards to those top 4 or 5 teams in the SEC. So even if an Auburn, Alabama, whoever gets blown out in their first game, their quarterfinal game, or whatever the case may be, he does not believe that is going to have any bearing whatsoever. He believes that the 18-game SEC schedule is going to be enough data for them to make a decision and to put those teams in the order they need to be in.
Yeah, and I think, another thing that probably helps them out a little bit is, let's be honest, a lot of these teams are all playing each other at the end of the regular season, right? Auburn's playing Alabama, Kentucky A&M. Alabama's playing Tennessee, Auburn, and Florida. Like, you're getting to see these matchups the week before the conference tournament, so you can kind of already make your judgments on, who deserves to be a 1 seed, 2 seed, what have you. So I think that certainly helps them out. But yeah, we knew it was going to be a big game in Rocky Top tomorrow. But yeah, if you're Alabama, you need that one.
So it's interesting because in the South region, according to Joe Lenardi, Auburn would be the number 1 seed. Number 2 would be Iowa State. Kentucky would be a 3 seed. And Purdue would be a 4 seed. So those are the top 4 seeds that would be in Auburn's bracket.
Okay. Well, we'll see based on tomorrow if Auburn would be happy with Kentucky in their bracket or not.
Yes. In the Midwest bracket, you've got Alabama would be a number 1, Michigan State a 2, Texas A&M a 3. Okay.
Okay.
4 Arizona.
Okay. Yeah. Arizona.
Still questioning that Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
They're trending in the wrong direction.
I was about to say, yeah, we'll see how these last 3 games go. But yeah, not looking great right now.
So Duke in the East, they would have Tennessee as a 2, Texas Tech at 3, and Michigan a 4.
I like that. That's a good top 4 right there.
And in the West, you would have Houston as the number 1, Florida would be 2, Wisconsin 3, and St. John's a 4.
Man, I want to see Houston and St. John's play so bad.
Me too.
It might be 35-35. Like that kind of a game. I think that would be an awesome.
Okay,
matchup.
so let's start with that. Let's start with the Auburn pod. Okay, of the top 4.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see tomorrow in regards to Kentucky.
But you've already beaten Iowa State this
You've
year.
already taken out Iowa State, and then you've played Purdue.
Yeah, and you beat them.
So, I mean, if you're Auburn, everybody of the top 4, you're going to be completely happy with that.
Yeah, you have already beat them. Now, maybe playing them a different time, obviously in a neutral site, that's going to make things different. But yeah, you'd have to feel pretty good if your 3 biggest competitors you've already beaten this season.
Midwest, Alabama would then have Michigan State, Texas A&M, and Arizona.
Michigan State, it's Tom Izzo in March, man. When he has a good team, and he is just, I don't know if y'all are like this, but, for a while when I was growing up, because I could make brackets for so long, Michigan State was always the team. If they were in the bracket, I was going to pick them to at least win 2 or 3 games because he was just money.
At least the Sweet 16.
In March Madness, yeah. And so that's a dangerous one for sure. But yeah, I think you feel pretty good if you got Texas A&M. Arizona's dangerous, but they've been kind of hit or miss at times. So
yeah,
you're not going to be too upset with that.
So it was interesting listening to Lenardi discuss the fact that he believes that once the 18-game SEC regular season schedule is over with, that no matter what happens in the tournament, unless you're one of those bubble teams, he was mainly referring to the Alabamas, the Tennessees.
I was about to say, like, if you're Texas or Oklahoma, you probably want to win a couple games.
Yeah, that's a completely different, thought process. But in regards to the Alabama Auburns, the Tennessees, the Floridas, those upper echelon teams that could be battling for number 1 seed, he believes that however you come out with that 18-game SEC schedule is going to have more bearing than what you do in the SEC basketball tournament.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this right now. So going in, if it's, a similar to what we have right now, where you're going to have, let's say 2 SEC teams on the 1 line and 2 on the 2 line, and that being, Auburn, Alabama, Florida, and Tennessee, do you think any of those teams just kind of punt on the SEC tournament and say, we feel like we're pretty set in where we are in our bracket. We're happy with that. Winning the SEC would be great. But as we've seen, and I know this is not, maybe a yearly comparison, but you look at last year, Auburn wins the SEC. They get bounced by Yale. Alabama loses in the first round. They get some rest and they go to the Final Four. Do you think you see any of those top teams just say, I think we're going to rest our guys and appreciate the invitation, but we're going to take that rest and be ready for NCAA tournament?
I don't think so. And the reason why is because most coaches that I've talked to, whether they're football coaches or basketball coaches throughout the years, they will tell you the same thing. They do not want that team to all of a sudden turn off the intensity, because once you turn off that intensity, it's sometimes difficult to turn it back on, if that makes sense. Yeah, you want to play smart. You want to rest some dudes, if you get into the game. But I think it's a very dangerous thing for them to just basically say, okay, guys, let's take it easy. Let's not go, full throttle here. I think that's a dangerous thing for teams to do.
No, I'd agree with that. It's just, it's been a conversation we've heard, certain, fans of different programs saying, oh, maybe it'd be better just to get some rest. But I also think that competitive mindset, I don't think any of the players are thinking like that. It's just from us on the outside looking at.
Well, and we will ask Wimp Sanderson at the bottom of the hour, because listen, I mean, and nobody was a better tournament coach than Coach Wimp Sanderson. I mean, what he was able to do, historic victories in the SEC basketball tournament. I mean, those guys were motivated and ready to play. And we'll ask Coach at the bottom of the hour if he was coaching today. And based on the way things are set up, what would be the philosophy going into an SEC basketball tournament? Because, I don't think there's any question that Janai Broome would probably enjoy a day or two off. Just like I think maybe Mark Sears would like to recharge his battery a little bit.
But I also think those guys are wired to where even if, Bruce Pearl-Nato says, hey, we're going to give you the day off, they say, no, I think I'm going to play today, Coach.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
I think you're going to put me out there.
No, there's no question about that. Because when you get to this point of the season, everybody's
banged up.
Everybody's banged up, and everybody, their legs, they're trying to get their legs back, for their jump shots and things of that nature. So, but we'll talk to Wimp Sanderson at the bottom of the hour. Again, Barrett Sully next hour. Yaxel Lindeborg, the outstanding forward for UAB. He's going to be with us at 11:15. Blake Lovell, Southeastern 16, and also Richard Hendricks. So we have got a full load today talking basketball. Thanks for tuning us in on this beautiful Friday. Should be a nice weekend. So join us here for the next 3.5 hours. This is Three Man Front on Jocks 94.5. It is 10:20, Jocks 94.5. Coach Wimp Sanderson will join us at the bottom of the hour, talk some bracketology with Coach. And His philosophy going into an SEC basketball tournament for both Alabama and Auburn, because right now both teams are expected to be fighting for that. Auburn probably already locked in as a number 1 seed, but Alabama still got a lot of work to do, possibly the next couple weeks, to try to solidify themselves as a number 1.
Well, we still have a lot of flu and sickness going around,
Really?
so make your home
Do
healthier.
we?
Unfortunately, Pat, as you can tell by the way I sound, yes.
Okay.
But you want to make your home healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. It removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles, including those that cause virus, is 100 times more effective than standard air filters and 8 times more effective than HEPA room filters. So go find a dealer near you at Trane.com.
So you remember yesterday we were talking about 8A games and spring practices and what's going to happen and all that kind of fun stuff. Well, the University of Alabama this morning, they have announced that their 8A game is scheduled for 12 p.m. inside Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. That is going to take place on Saturday, April the 12th. Now, 8A is it's the final workout of 15 practices of the spring schedule. And they've also announced, Conrad, that there will be no live broadcast of the event.
Yeah, I'll be honest. My first reaction when I saw that they weren't going to have or that they were doing that was, okay, well, maybe they're going to have some sort of, hey, pay $10 to Yay Alabama and you can get a stream of the A-Day game or something like that to try to drive NIL. But I guess that's not going to be the case. So I mean, again, I get it. We understand why teams are doing it. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I guess the good news that comes out of this is they did announce that it is going to be open to fans and it is free to attend.
That's good.
So if you want to go down there, and maybe that's just their way of trying to get more people on campus and, support the businesses around campus. And
would you
things
be
like
allowed
that.
to take your phone out and live stream on TikTok or Instagram Live or anything like that?
That is a good question. I would imagine someone is at least going to try to do that, but yeah, again, look, I'm glad that they're opening it to fans. That was my thing with the Texas spring game was, at least let the fans come and enjoy it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. I wish it was on TV, but it is what it is, and they're trying to protect their roster. So,
yes, they are. Also, some news coming out of College Station this morning, which you've got all these athletic departments, and we'll spend a little bit of time later on in the show because Matt Rule had some interesting comments on a podcast. And listen, you can criticize Matt Rule for a lot of different things in regards to what he has tried to do in regards to the spring practice and some of the things he said, but he's been honest, and he was most definitely honest on a podcast talking about scheduling. But Texas A&M, the former athletics director there at Nebraska, they've got some big news.
Yes, that is correct. The rich are getting richer, Pat, which I'm sure is something that brings a smile to all of our faces, at least John Mack's face. But yeah, in a press release released by the university this morning, it reads, Texas A&M University Athletics, part of a world-class educational institution with over 80,000 current students and one of the largest alumni bases in the world. They're pumping themselves up in their own press release. But it goes on to say, and Playfly Sports is partnering up with Texas A&M. Playfly Sports, the leading revenue maximizer of the sports industry, announced today that they have agreed to a 15-year multimedia rights deal partnership. It is going to be a $515 million guaranteed contract. The quick math there, about $34 million a year. So this is moving essentially from Learfield to Playfly. It's essentially the same thing as Learfield, or very similar, but they are now going to essentially double the amount of money that they're bringing in on an annual basis from their multimedia rights deal.
That is insane. And you were telling us during the break, Molly, that Playfly, that should not be a surprise because Trev Alberts brought Playfly into Nebraska, correct? And they ran all their broadcasting.
Yeah, broadcasting, a lot of like multimedia marketing type of stuff. So like when I worked for Huskers Radio, my first year working there was my junior year and we weren't a Playfly school yet. But then going into my senior year, I was technically a quote-unquote Playfly employee because they owned all the broadcasting rights. But yeah, Trev brought in Playfly to Nebraska, and so this has Trev written all over it.
Well, this is what Trev had to say about the partnership,
Oh,
Molly.
here we go. Perfect.
He says, quote, we're entering a new era of collegiate athletics, and Texas A&M is positioned to be a strong leader. This partnership with Playfly reflects our commitment to innovation, maximizing our revenue potential, and providing new opportunities for student athletes, fans, and corporate partners. Our ability to find and grow approved fair market NIL deals to organically grow our cap will be critically important. With a focus on NIL, premium experiences, and strategic partnerships, we are excited about the transformative impact this collaboration will have on our programs, university, and the entire Aggie network.
Well, it is interesting because earlier this week, Chris Del Conte, who is the athletics director at the University of Texas, he had an open forum and it's kind of like a town hall. And he was talking about this upcoming calendar year for the UT Austin athletics program. And he mentioned that they were going to take, and this is no big surprise, I think most all SEC schools will do this, but they will participate in divvying up $20.5 million to student athletes once the House settlement becomes official in April. He also pointed out that they're going to need an additional $10 million to cover scholarships because they will not cut out any scholarships. Whereas some schools are talking about, well, for us to be able to do this, we might need to cut back on some of the revenue, the non-revenue producing sports.
Yes.
And so Texas is saying, he's basically saying, we are not going to back down. We run the best athletics department in the country, and we are not going to walk backwards on this. We are going to move forward. And so they're going to need another $10 million. And they're positioned very well because it is the University of Texas, but they have decided that they're going to raise football season ticket prices by $13 per game or $80 per ticket for the entire season. So they're going to utilize the fact that Texas could be a preseason number 1, number 2, number 3 team in America. And Texas football has never been this hot as a product. Arch Manning is the number 1 player most likely to win the Heisman Trophy, according to Vegas, as of this moment. So they are going to tap into every single dollar they can. So Texas is raising ticket prices for their football program.
So I may have missed it, but is this like Tennessee raising the ticket prices and then a percentage of the, I guess, the amount you pay for a ticket is going to NIL?
According to this, there was no mention of that. That money, he said, was going to go to cover scholarships.
Okay.
The scholarships that's needed. In other words, instead of cutting back on scholarships, I'm just using this, no offense to the women's tennis team, but I'm just using that as an example. That is a non-revenue producing sport for every school. Okay. So with that being said, they don't want to cut scholarships. They want to make sure that if they have scholarship women's tennis players right now, this next calendar year, they want to continue that and pay for their school. So they need to come up with an additional fundage if you're going to go ahead and divvy up the $20.5 million in pay to all those other sports.
Okay. No, and that's, I just didn't know if another part of that was also going to go to NIL and that was like, you know, going to be their way
now,
of
that's where the funny
contributing to
accounting
that.
comes in. I'm not a comptroller, I'm not a CPA, but you would have to think that
it's much easier for me to be in support of, hey, we're trying to keep all of these athletes on scholarship for the smaller programs. I have no problem with that. I mean, let's be honest, everything's more expensive now. I know that's not a good thing, but I mean, if you're paying $100 to go see a college football game, is an extra $13 really that big of a problem for you? Probably not. So I'm much more in support of that and trying to keep, you know, the tennis teams, the rowing teams, the Olympic sports, and keeping those players on scholarship and giving them that opportunity. But unfortunately, while that's great for Texas, you know, I don't know how many other universities are going to be able to do that. But hey, good for Texas, at least for making that happen.
Nothing but a great quote from Del Conte to the group. He says, "This is the University of Texas. We're good at everything. We're going to fully fund every single one of our sports at the highest division. When you look across the board, every single one of those sports, our obligation, my obligation, is to fund them at the highest level." So yes, we're good at everything.
I love that.
According
to swimming and dive powerhouse.
That's right. 46 years of their men and women's team winning a conference championship.
Hey, #1 women's basketball team in the country.
That's right. It's nuts. All right. When we come back, Coach Wimp Sanderson will join us. Brought to you by Craneworks. It's the Friday edition of 3-Man Front. Oh, it's always fun on Friday when we get to catch up with Coach Wimp Sanderson. And each week it's brought to you by Craneworks.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah! The big dog's got it.
Wimp Sanderson on Three Man Front is brought to you by Craneworks. Lift it, buy it, rent it. The big dog's got it. And now, Wimp Sanderson.
And joining us now on the Buyer's Ride Hotline, Coach Wimp Sanderson joins us on Three Man Front. Coach, I hope you're doing well on this Friday.
I'm doing okay. Tell me this. Would Landrum have taken a week off during football season?
Of course not, Coach. He doesn't like basketball. He could care less. You worked with him all those years. He didn't want y'all to talk. He didn't want you and Sonny talking basketball. He wanted y'all to talk football all the time.
I'll nail him on that when he gets back home.
Hey, Coach, I want to start.
I know.
Can I start?
Go ahead.
I want to start here
sure.
real quick, if that's okay.
Sure.
Do you remember what you were doing 38 years ago today?
I do.
You
and
do?
I had the two players on my team. We were playing in Tuscaloosa.
Yep.
The score was tied against Norm Sloan. It's a great question. I appreciate you asking it.
Yep.
Norm Sloan's Florida team. We had a chance to win the tournament.
Florida was ranked number 7.
Win the game.
Yep. Florida was ranked number 17 in America.
We were very good.
You were ranked number 10. Yep.
They go to the line for 2 free throws.
Mm-hmm.
If they make both the free throws, we can't catch them because time's going to run out, and they're going to have a 4-point lead. On the second free throw, he misses. Derek McKee rebounds it, gets it to J.J. Jackson. J.J. Jackson goes down the right lane, right side, as far as he can go. J.J. Jackson is a youngster that I got. I'll tell you that story in a minute. He got down there, and as he got down, way on down at the three-point area, Shinchus, who's a great player for Florida, came up and made him shoot the ball real high. He shot the booger bear, and it banked in. It banked in for a 3-point shot. We tied the game. And we went into overtime, and Derek McKee tipped it in we won the game, won the championship, went on to of course, go to the NCAA tournament and got to the Final 16 as some of my teams did. And I get criticized. Not criticized, but talked about a lot because Alabama's arena is not as loud as Auburn's, and the way it was built, and it was built for 14-8 a long time ago. Okay, you can argue that Auburn's is harder to play in. I agree, but in that particular day, the crowd was absolutely unbelievable, and we won that game. I was one of the most exciting. I had a lot of exciting games because I was an excited person. And that I'll never forget that game. Yep. I got a piece of paper on my desk, and it said, "There's a guy at Texas State named J.J. Jackson from Montgomery. You ought to check him." And I get all kind of papers and stuff when I was coaching and phone calls. They gave me a phone number. For some reason, I started calling 2 or 3 coaches out there. I said, "What kind of guy is this guy? This guy at Texas State?" They said, "Wimp, he can really shoot it." So I called him, and I take him. Transfer rules set in, and I got him. And he played the 2 spot. Mark Godfrey played the 2 spot. Both of them played the 2 spot for me, and they could really shoot the basketball outside. But it was just fortunate I was laughing at J.J. Dad. I said, "JJ, if I don't make that call, you're not famous at all." And he enjoyed that and appreciated it. And Derek, I didn't get a hold of D today, but D was a terrific player, absolutely terrific player. So the guy that was doing the Ole Miss play-by-play lived in his town, and D rode with him to all the Ole Miss games. And I'm thinking to myself, "Whew, I have a hard time getting him." And we got over there and got with it. We gave his. Here's my cheating on him. He rode a bicycle. He had a bicycle. We gave his mother a Mother's Day card. and one of my assistant coaches slipped and had her hair fixed, and I didn't know it.
Oh boy.
That was the extent of getting. That was the extent of getting. She got her hair fixed. She got her hair fixed in a Mother's Day card.
There
Come
you
on.
go. Hey, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, I bet you her hair looked really good, didn't it?
Yeah, her hair looked really good. And anytime she wanted, after he got to playing real well, she could have that cotton picking hair fixed. I told my sister, get her hair fixed anytime she wants it. Come on.
That is great.
He didn't admit it till it was over with. But we got the next week or week after, whenever you want me to. I'm going to talk about the SEC tournament.
Sure.
And it's going to knock me. I'm not going to brag on it because we did so well, but because I want to explain to you what happened in the SEC tournament that made it different back then than today. And I understand round robin versus SEC tournament. I got all that, and I'll say that to next week. You don't want to hear about that right now.
Since you did bring up the tournament, I did want to ask you this, though, because we've had this conversation over the last week or so, because the same conversation came up with the new expanded college football playoff. Like, what would be the philosophy for you, Coach, if you're sitting there right now, if you're Bruce Pearl or Nate Oates, and your team obviously is on the one line currently, and you're going through the gauntlet of a tough 18-game SEC schedule, and then you got to go to Nashville. Your place in the NCAA tournament is probably already solidified. Like, what is your attitude?
I try to rest my guys. But play them as much as I could in order to win it.
Okay.
I'd rest them some though, but I'd play them. I was going to knock myself. But I heard y'all the other day, I'm not bragging on myself at all. I'm not bragging on what happened, not bragging at all. We got to the final 6 times. I got to the last game. I got to the last game in the SEC tournament 9 out of 12 years. I mean, I am bragging on myself.
That's okay. Hey, it's not bragging if it's true, Coach. It's not bragging if it's true. 9 out of 12 years, that means we played a lot of games in the SEC tournament. And do I think that tired us out for some of the games that we played in the NCAA? I don't know. But I can use that as an excuse if I want to. And so the excuse was that we got Booger Bear draws. We held Michael Jordan to 13 points, played North Carolina at North Carolina State, didn't get screwed by the officials till right after the national anthem. And it's terrible. And they put the screws to us, and they won the national championship. I took that plaid sport coat, threw it in the garbage can. So I did. I threw it in the garbage. Dean comes out, and I don't know why I'm going back over all this stuff. That's all right. It's great stuff.
Dean comes in there. Now, Dean wants everybody to root for him because he's at North Carolina State.
Right.
And he's in North Carolina, so he comes and be sure, and he wants to be sure he sits in the North Carolina State, on North Carolina State's bench, and where Lionel sat. And so he did that, and we played him great. We held, as I said, Michael 13. And it's what he said when he played with him in pros. He always kidded him about it, but and we lost the game by 5. We had great teams, and we had 9 and 10 seeds that were really, really hard. So no excuse. It all falls on one person. That's me, and I'll accept it. But our kids were good, and I wanted to say something about, and I'm going to say something about the state tournament because I'm not going to tell you when I played in the state tournament. But I played in the state tournament against a quarterback at Alabama, and we won the game. I better go to and the state tournament tomorrow. It means Hoover, who hadn't lost a game, is probably not going to lose one. Is going to play my high school in Florence.
That's right.
Back when I was in Florence, it was Coffee High School. But now it's Florence High School. They're playing tomorrow. They'll have a hard time beating Hoover because Hoover's very good. But I'll tell that story of halftime. I don't need to talk about that anymore. But I did play. If you can guess who it was, you think about who that quarterback was that He was quarterback for Coach Bryant.
Okay.
Okay, you can think about what I'm thinking this. I'm thinking that Alabama beats Tennessee. Nobody thinks that but me. I said on my radio show. I probably should, and I'm not going by the line. I lean what the line is this time. I think that maybe I should say they have a better chance to beat Tennessee. I think Tennessee's good. Rick worked for me. I know Rick real well. Greg Polinsky is up there, was my assistant coach. He's come in and signed the kid from Hoover. I don't think that they shoot it quite as well as they have in the past. They did in a couple of games. They're not quite as good defensively as they have been in past games. They're good. If Alabama has, I don't think they have to have a Mississippi State game to win it, but they have to have a good game. And I think they've got a shot to win that game. I'm no predictor, I can tell you that. But I'm not talking about the line. I'm just talking about to win that. The other thing that I think might happen, and look, y'all, basketball just takes on that night, a game that night, because everything's one and done just about when you get in the tournaments. I think Kentucky has a big chance to beat Auburn. I say that not in lieu of the fact that Auburn's at Auburn, because I know Bruce well and all that kind of stuff. So I think Kentucky is getting their two players back they did not have at Alabama. They win a 1-point game at Oklahoma, and get this one, the Oklahoma player transferred to Kentucky and played against Kentucky and scored 28. It was hardly a handshake when they went. He scored 28, and he made the last 3 field goals to beat. And Kentucky wins by 1. I don't care if it's a half a point. If you win by 1, you feel good about yourself.
Yep.
So playing at Kentucky with 2 starters back, an exciting win on the road against Oklahoma. I think Kentucky has a chance to beat Auburn. It's not anything. I think Auburn is terrific. Bruce is the coach of the decade. He's really good. And I'm not on here, so these Auburn people don't be writing me or calling the show and fussing about me. I think Auburn's good, and I think Alabama's good. Mm-hmm. And I don't, I never have been a guy in best. Who's your best player? I get to ask all. Who's your best team? What was your best this? I just never been a big best. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
All right. So before
those two games are big. Go ahead.
I was just going to say before we let you go and talk about Craneworks, can I make a guess on who you played?
Yeah. Was
it Pat Trammell?
Yeah. No.
It was not.
Bobby Skelton at Pell City.
Oh, okay.
When Coach Bryant came back from Texas A&M, Bobby Skelton was his quarterback.
Gotcha.
I've done. Bobby Skelton has been the top referee in the Super Bowl. He was. He's passed away. And Bobby Skelton has called a lot. I've done a lot of work trying to get Bobby Skelton in the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. And you got people that vote on it don't understand it, but he should be in there. He was a terrific quarterback for Coach Bryant when he came. I enjoyed playing against him. He was at Pell City. I was at Coffee. We were fortunate enough to win the game. So we had I know I got to go, but we had a situation where I coached at Carbon Hill 1 year before I came to Alabama as a GA. Our next game that next day was going to be Carbon Hill. This is a great little story. They had a clock on the wall at Foster Auditorium that was a big round clock where the minute hand just went over and showed the little score, but there was only one clock in the whole arena. Our Coach Riley, who was former coach at Alabama at one time, he said, "We need to get here real early in the morning to play Carbon Hill because we need the clock the second half. We need to practice. We need to shoot away from the clock the first half." We got up at the cotton picking crack of dawn. Got there, guess who was there? Carbon Hill.
Oh boy,
they beat us.
Unbelievable.
And, it was a great story. And So anyway, I've jumped around from every direction.
No,
but
it's been
sometimes
great,
people
Coach.
like that.
But David Upton, our friends down at Craneworks,
Yep.
they make this possible
Yep.
each and every week.
Well, David Upton does a great job at Craneworks, and they do everything they possibly can to be sure that they're looked at, and they'll get you the equipment that you need. And they'll bring an operator with you, and they're in Huntsville, they're in Mobile, they're all over the place. Want to thank Craneworks for having us on every week. Appreciate you guys letting me on. And if you need anything, you need some equipment rented or taken care of, then call Craneworks. Thanks, guys.
Hey,
I appreciate you.
Hey, thanks, Coach. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good week. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks.
That was Coach Wim Sanderson joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Top of the hour, we'll talk to Barrett Salee, get a little spring training report from the Atlanta Braves. That's all next on the Friday edition of Three Man Front. It's always a lot of fun talking to Coach Wimp Sanderson each and every Friday on the show, brought to you by Craneworks. Isn't that crazy to think that what happened 38 years ago today, 1987, Derek McKee tipped in the winning basket as the Alabama Crimson Tide, ranked 10th in America, knocks off the Florida Gators in overtime. Big win, and Alabama went on to win the regular season championship in the SEC. Made it to the Sweet 16. Unfortunately, they ran up against a team, head coach Rick Pitino, and the Providence Friars that had a spunky little guard by the name of Billy Donovan.
Looky there. Funny how that works, isn't it?
It really is.
Hey, Coach remembered that game like it was yesterday, though.
Yeah.
pretty impressive considering how long ago it was.
It was a great game. Terry Connor had he had 16 points in the game. Jim Farmer had 15. Some names from the past.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an Alabama basketball fan, Alabama finished the year 28-5 and reached the Sweet 16.
So not a bad year right there.
No.
Not a bad year.
Not a bad deal at all. Barrett Slee is going to join us in about 10 minutes from now. We will talk a little bit about the Atlanta Braves, what's going on in spring training. You can hear Barrett on the Atlanta Braves broadcast coming up on the Jocks family of stations.
Well, Wallace State is holding a ribbon-cutting ceremony tomorrow at 12:30 to celebrate their new synthetic turf field at Bailey Stadium up there in Hansville. Festivities are going to include a cookout and free game admission. They would also like to extend a special invitation to all former Lions players as well as alumni, family, friends, and the public. Again, that's a special ribbon-cutting ceremony tomorrow at 12:30 at Bailey Stadium at Wallace State, Hansville.
Also, speaking of Major League Baseball, word is starting to leak out that once ESPN told Major League Baseball that they were done after this year of broadcasting their games, Major League Baseball has already had early talks with Amazon, NBC Universal, and Netflix.
Really? I thought Apple might find themselves in there because they do a couple games here and there.
So a couple streamers, Amazon and Netflix, and I suppose Peacock, maybe,
Probably.
for NBC Universal.
Would you have a preference out of those three in terms of where you would like it to be held?
It doesn't matter to me because every single year, I probably overdo this. I purchase all of the stuff.
You have MLB TV?
I got TV. I've got on my laptop. So
Do you have it for all 30 teams or just the Cardinals?
just the Cardinals.
Okay.
Okay.
Just the Cardinals. But then on my laptop, I can watch anybody.
Yeah.
And then obviously I have the DirecTV extra innings package. Do you have that?
I do not.
You do not have that.
I do not.
So I have that so that I can tune in and watch your Yankees when I want to watch your Yankees.
That's right.
Which is not very often, by the way.
I was going to say
No.
that should
But
be all
if-
the time.
But if
Don't
I
think
have
so.
that option, if I want to, with the equal schedule.
Well, whenever
now
you
in
miss
MLB.
Goldschmidt this year and you need a trip down memory lane,
Yep.
you can just turn on the Yankees
And who
game for a
knows?
little
Maybe
bit.
Arenado will be on third base for the Yankees, and yeah, it'll be like an old Cardinal reunion.
Fingers crossed. Well, one team that's doing better than the Yankees in spring training is the Braves. 4-2. Granted, it's spring training, so not going to take any of this to the bank.
Yeah,
but
I would not get too caught up in that because the Cardinals won the Grapefruit League last year. They had the best record in spring training, and then guess what happened?
yeah, that didn't work out super well.
We did finish 4 games above 500, better than the year before when we finished 20 games under 500. But
I was about to say, that feels like 500 feels like that should be about the floor for the Cardinals on any given year.
preach it, brother.
Yeah.
Preach it.
Well,
I could have had my say with the owner last year, but Molly stopped me.
I had to. You were foaming at the mouth.
Molly grabbed my arm and said, "Don't do it. Don't do it. This is for the show, for the brand. Don't embarrass me."
And you didn't.
It is 11 o'clock. Welcome in. This is Three Man Front on a Filthy Friday. Pat, Molly, Conrad, Landry will be back with us on Monday. Joining us now on the Buyer's Ride Hotline from the Braves Radio Network and Sirius XM Radio, our good friend Barrett Sallee joins us on Three Man Front. Barrett, I hope you're doing well on this Friday.
I'm doing great. Nice sunny weather here. A little chilly, but you know what? Spring's around the corner. You can feel it, and hopefully this is not that false fake spring that Mother Nature seems to give us from time to time, because it feels nice outside.
Yeah, and Barrett, I think you would probably remember this as well. Back in 1993, during the SEC basketball tournament in Lexington, Kentucky, there was a little thing called the Blizzard of 1993. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. I was actually flying back. Our spring break for school is always the first week of September. We were the fourth plane to land at Hartsfield after the blizzard happened. It was terrifying.
Oh, it was something else, and nothing like I think right beforehand we had like 75-degree weather, and then about 2 days later we had about 12 inches of snow. So it was crazy.
It was awesome.
All right, so you got the Braves down in spring training right now. Just your very early read of what you're seeing and what you're hearing.
Yeah, I think they're actually really comfortable with the bullpen. Buck Farmer pitched a pretty good inning a couple days ago. Perdomo, who looks like a reincarnate of Kenley Jansen, looked fine. They're happy with him, and maybe he can get back to the form that he had when he was more successful. You saw Shreve pitch yesterday. He's, I think, a guy that they expect to be a nice middle reliever, long reliever out of the bullpen, a lefty who you can also use in matchup situations. So I know a lot of Braves fans are concerned about the bullpen, and I mean, obviously I get it. You still should be, but so far they seem extremely happy with where they are. It's spring training, so obviously that'll change, especially when some of these relievers actually start pitching against starters, which will probably be in the next week or so. But so far so good. They have really no complaints. I think maybe you probably wanted to see Brian De La Cruz last night play a little better, but that no injuries, except for Nacho Alvarez, but I don't think that's a huge deal. So they're happy right now.
All right, Barrett. So from the bullpen to the starting rotation, I know obviously you're still waiting on Strider coming back from injury, but you got Chris Sale coming back. I know Schwellenbach had a really nice showing in his couple of innings he had the other day. Bryce Elder a little shaky yesterday from what I saw earlier in the week. But how is this rotation shaping up right now for the Braves as you approach opening day, knowing that you're still waiting on Strider to come back?
Well, today's going to be big because I believe Ian Anderson and Grant Holmes are scheduled to go. So that'll be interesting because those two, with all the expectations are that they will be the final two before Strider gets back. But this is a big chance for one or the other to sort of separate himself. Is it going to be the be-all, end-all? No. But for me, today's going to be fascinating because of those two guys going. I think that there's a mindset. Well, let me say it. Snitker has kind of hinted at the fact that they would put Grant Holmes in the bullpen if they needed to. And Ian Anderson doesn't have an option left. So you have a little bit of a problem once Strider comes back. Do you designate Ian Anderson? I wouldn't. I still have faith in the guy, or at least a little bit. So that part to me is going to be fascinating to see if they do decide to go with Ian Anderson when Strider gets back, because they would probably lose him altogether if they don't. So that would entail Grant Holmes moving to the bullpen, which I think ultimately might be the right move anyway, because you know what Grant Holmes is capable of. So there are some moving parts for sure. Bryce Elder yesterday did what Bryce Elder does, and that's nibble too much, put too many people on base, and and gave up 2 runs. I do wonder, how things, they didn't have the ABS system in Jupiter yesterday. So does that take away more of his effectiveness in spring when he does pitch with that ABS system? Maybe that's the case, but I think it's a long shot for Bryce Elder anyway. And yesterday did him no help, because he kind of looked like that guy who was afraid to go and attack hitters, and ultimately that's what led to him struggling the second half of the 2023 season and basically all of 2024.
So Matt Olson homers on Wednesday, and I know last year, at least the first 100 games of the season, I think he had like a 223 average, 15 home runs. Is there anything to make one way or another with the production of him this spring training as he gets ready for another season at first base for the Braves?
I don't think so, because last year, the first 2 months of the season, his average didn't look good, but he hit the ball hard. He was top 5, top 10 in barrel rate and exit velocity and expected batting average and all those things, which, depending on how much you care about that stuff, you might not make as a big deal, but basically he was hitting atom balls right at people. And I think that was one of those things where it just never seemed to benefit him. The law of averages didn't really happen for him. So does that mean things will change this year? It's dumb luck sometimes. So maybe it will, maybe it won't, but I wouldn't be too concerned about him. He didn't change anything. You saw him last year go in those spurts where he basically was, a flat out superstar. So as long as he has that barrel rate, as long as his exit velocity is what it is and expected batting average is what it was last year, I think he'll be fine, because it was remarkable how unlucky he was last year.
So as it stands right now, Barrett, is there one player, maybe there's a couple of guys that you would circle right now as maybe your breakout players that maybe, if you're a diehard Braves fan, you're familiar with the name, but somebody that maybe the more average Braves fan, we're going to look up around the All-Star break and they're going to go, where did this guy come from?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a guy that's unknown. I don't want to dodge the question. Say it's a guy that's known and has taken a lot of heat, and that's Orlando Arcia. He's going to bat ninth, in my opinion. He was really good batting ninth 2 years ago. It was he had a 906 OPS or something like that. He put too much pressure on himself last year. With all the injuries, in his mind, he had to go out and be a superstar. He's not, and I think he realized that. And being in the ninth hole, if you can get on base, you're going to do a lot of good for Ronald Acuna, and he's going to get a lot of pitches to hit too. So I am not saying that Arcia is going to be an all-star, but I'm also not that concerned that he's going to continue where he was last year. Snit said, I guess it was 4 or 5 days ago, that he liked Michael Harris in the middle of the lineup. Michael Harris said that he does not mind batting ninth at all. And so I think Snit's going to win that conversation because Michael Harris actually is a fantastic number 9 hitter. He is a really good number 9 hitter. 2 years ago when Ronald was healthy, he didn't bat ninth. 3 years ago he did, and he hit 15 home runs. You don't want your ninth hitter hitting 15 home runs because then nobody's on base for Ronald.
Yeah.
So I think all that combined, Arcia is going to probably be put there, and he's going to see a ton of pitches to hit, and his mindset is going to be, don't swing for the fences. Don't swing out of your shoes, because old Ronald Acuna is coming up right behind you, and he's pretty good at baseball last time I checked.
He sure is. Barrett Sallee joins us from the Braves Radio Network. You can hear Barrett on the pre- and post-game shows on our Jocks family of stations coming up as the season is right around the corner. I want to ask you a quick football question before we let you go. Any surprises coming out of the college football playoff meetings from Dallas from your perspective? Not a lot of people talking except Jim Phillips.
Yeah, well, I think that tells you an awful lot that Jim Phillips is talking, because Jim Phillips is probably feeling some heat from all of his ADs, and is trying to do his best to put lipstick on a pig, so to speak. So I think ultimately this thing was a threat. I think more than anything else, you had all this hype and all this buzz, and there was a reason for it, and that is the SEC and Big Ten sort of taking things over. They haven't yet. That's I think a good thing for the sport, but it's still trending in that direction. And the fact that you've got people on the outside talking that might be on the outside looking in of this new era shows that they're doing their best to own the PR, and they're not going to succeed, but at least they're trying.
That is Barrett Sallee. You can hear him each, of course, prior to every game there for the Atlanta Braves on the Braves Radio Network. Barrett, always appreciate your time. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
Thanks. That's Barrett Sallee joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Coming up in just a couple minutes, we will catch up with Yaxel Lindenborg, outstanding forward for the UAB Blazers. They got a big win last night in Wichita as the Blazers get ready to pack Bartow out on Sunday, 3 o'clock tip-off against Memphis. He's next on Three Man Front. Fresh off a big win last night in Wichita, Kansas, Yaxel Lindenborg is about to join the program, the outstanding forward for the UAB Blazers. He's a walking double-double. My goodness. Number 2 in America when it comes to that. Yaxel Lindenborg now joins us on Three Man Front. Yax, welcome to the program. And, man, I know it was a late night getting back, but I bet you didn't mind it after coming off a big victory against the Shockers.
Yeah, not at all, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Yax. We're so happy to have you on here, and you've just had such a fantastic season, and I know there's still a lot left to go. You got a big one coming up on Sunday in Bartow, but I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on your development this season. You were so successful at UAB last year, but you've gone up almost 4 points a game in scoring average. You've doubled your assists per game, doubling steals per game. What was your point of emphasis coming into this season for UAB that you looked at and said, that's what I need to work on to take my game to the next level? Because it clearly seems to be working for you this year.
Yeah, thank you, man. Well, I mean, last year I was just playing purely off of just talent, that I was blessed with and just skill. I never really worked towards having them like a, go-to move or something I can rely on. In the off season, me and Coach AJ really worked out pretty much every day, every other day, as much as we could, just to develop me more of like a scoring instinct, and get a better jump shot, just in case the paint gets clogged up and all that. And I feel like the doubling assist, that just comes with me getting double teamed. Last year I didn't see that. And, I wouldn't mind getting a double because that gets my teammates going. And I would love to get them going rather than myself. So, it started off with that. And then it started getting a little bit more developed. We've been working out more towards the season as well and just really focusing on that jump shot.
Yeah, Axel, one thing's for sure. I went to class. We went to school with your head basketball coach, and so I remember him as he played at UAB, and he was a fiery player for Gene Bartow, and now he's your head coach. And I hear him sometimes talk about how he tries to motivate you to be a little bit more aggressive, going to the rim and getting to the free throw line. And it seems that has worked pretty well, especially the second half of this season.
Yeah, man. I can't be aggressive enough for him. He wants me to take about 30 to 40 shots a game. I feel like I would definitely start doing that.
Yax, let me tell you something. He used to step across half court, and his coach at the time, Gene Bartow, would stand up yelling. Andy never saw a shot he didn't like. So if he's telling you to shoot the ball more, go for it, brother. Make it happen.
Man, if I can get through my head eventually, I will.
Oh, that's incredible. So, Yax, let me go back to the fact that maybe the beginning of the season did not start as well as you guys had hoped it to. But there's no doubt over the last month and a half or so, you guys have really come together as a team, only losing a couple games in conference. But it seems like you guys are really hitting your stride now.
Yeah, I would say at the beginning of the year, that struggle was completely on me. Everybody was looking towards me to be like that leader, that role model kind of guy. And I was just trying to hide off in the shadows and just play basketball. Then, Christian Coleman as well, he stepped up for us, started being more of like a leader and, just playing his brand of basketball. We know he can, and that really brought life to the team. Earlier on, we struggled with being a brotherhood, a unit, and we had a couple meetings as a team, just players only, trying to talk about what we have to do to get better. Everybody has to get on board. Eventually, it started coming along, and we started trusting each other more on defense and offense, and that's just leading to our, recent success.
So, Yax, I wanted to ask just kind of what the mindset is. What are y'all talking about in the locker room in terms of, you have a big game coming up against Memphis on Sunday, but the conference tournament right around the corner. You're trying to get back to the NCAA tournament again. Are y'all putting a lot of pressure on that, or are you continuing to just take it day by day and game by game? And once you get to conference tournament time, you're just gonna, hope that you're playing your best basketball then and see where it goes.
Yeah, AK's really, doing a great job of just making sure that we take it day by day, that we know that we belong here. We had the struggles earlier out in the year, but it doesn't matter anymore because, we're right in the position where we want to be. And that's, hopefully to fight for a regular season championship and get put in good position for the, conference championship. So, we're all excited for this game on Sunday, of course. Coach AK just let us know it's going to be like a packed out game. This is what you can do at B4, he says. And, we're all super excited for what's ahead in the future.
I wanted to ask you about the opponent on Sunday, a little X's and O's, because when you guys played in Memphis before, the game kind of got out of hand. But just your thoughts on this Memphis Tiger basketball team. They were predicted to finish behind you guys in the American Athletic Conference, and they have really had a good season so far. What kind of challenges do they bring to the table in regards to the X's and O's?
Yeah, well, I mean, they pretty much 1 through 4 can shoot the ball lights out. They have a lot of good athletes on the team that know their role, know what they need to do. They got 2 good post players now. It's like it's a big presence inside for them. PJ Hagler, he's really hard to, handle. Even if he's not beating you off the dribble and shooting threes, it's like he's going to draw the foul on you somehow. It's just like, we've got to really lock in on our defensive assignments and to scout, to make sure that we don't give up those open in-rhythm threes so they can get going. We got to just play gritty basketball and try to, wear them down as much as we can.
talking with Yaxel Lindeborg of the UAB Blazers here on Three Man Front. So something I'm always curious about, especially with guys as talented as you, is, you know, I know a lot of people are maybe a little superstitious, or you have a routine that you go through every game day, and that's just kind of how you know, I guess, have your peace of mind going into a game and make sure you're ready. So I didn't know, do you have any weird, you know, is there anything about your pregame routine that absolutely has to be the exact same every game? Is there maybe, you know, a certain music that you listen to, a certain pregame meal that you have to eat? Do you have anything like that that's a part of your pregame routine?
My favorite routine now is I have to wear the same like undershorts pretty much for the game.
Okay.
With the padded underwear. I have to take a shower before the game now, and then I do listen to two certain songs every time that I get on the court. So I mean,
what are they?
The first one is "Proud Family" by Tory Lanez, and the second one is "Part 2 on the Run" by Beyonce.
Oh, okay. I like it.
All right, you kind of mentioned it before, Yax. Coming into this season, were there certain aspects of your game that I know you mentioned about, you know, trying to get stronger yourself, but was there anything particular, one or two areas that you felt like for you to get the most out of what you wanted to do coming back to UAB? Because listen, UAB fans they were ecstatic when you announced on social media that you were coming back for another season. Have you been able to check those boxes on those areas of your game that you wanted to improve?
My 3-point percentage, you know, it's okay right now, but I definitely set a goal to myself to at least shoot 50 or try to make 50, either one of those, whichever one came first. And I don't think I checked that box off. But, you know, I came back to try to win, try to bring more life into the program, hopefully give them another ring like I promised the first year. And I feel like in that regard, I am checking a little bit of the boxes off. I ended up breaking the double-double record, which is, you know, a goal I set, and that's one thing I'm very proud of. But, you know, as long as I get to bring them at least one more championship, then I'll be satisfied with my return.
So, Yaxel, I don't know how much or if you watch any at all, but I was just curious, you know, when you watch the NBA, is there a player or maybe multiple players that you look at and you try to model your game after, or maybe it's a former player that you watched, you know, when you were younger and that kind of inspired you to turn into the player you are now? I just didn't know if you took any inspiration from anybody in the NBA.
Yeah, I would say, you know, in regards to the way I'm built, you know, players that are like, you know, built like me, I would try to be like Nas Reed or Paulo Banchero. You know, they're two tall guys that can move really fluently and, you know, just you know, create for themselves and for the teammates. And just as far as like being a person and a man in the NBA, I would look at LeBron James because he pretty much does everything right.
That is Yaxel Lindeborg, the outstanding power forward for the UAB Blazers. Big game coming up Sunday. Pac Bartow. It's a 3:00 tip-off. Tickets are very hard to come by, so if you're looking for tickets, I suggest you go to uabsports.com and try to get those tickets because it is going to be an electric atmosphere. Yax, continued success. We look forward to hopefully being able to cover you in the NCAA tournament. Best of luck this weekend.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you guys for having me.
Hey, thanks. That's Yaxel Lindeborg, the outstanding power forward. He has set all sorts of records. He is number 2 in the nation in double-doubles. You know, there's a guy down in Auburn by the name of Janai Broom that is, you know, right there at number 1. And then you have UAB's Yaxel Lindeborg coming in at number 2.
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely incredible. He's averaging 17.5 points a game, almost 11 rebounds a game. This is a guy that, I mean, not only is he UAB's best player, I fully expect that we're going to be watching him at the next level. And he has that kind of talent.
And the fact that if you do not know his story, he's only been playing basketball for about 5 or 6 years.
Well, and I like the answer he gave early in the interview of, yeah, I mean, last year I was pretty much just my God-given talent kind of carried the way for me. And now I've started to actually kind of own the craft and work on technique and different things like that. And the results are, you know, clearly showing themselves this year.
Well, when you look at a stat line and you see one particular player that leads the team in scoring, rebounds, assists, because they collapse and double team him a ton.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens? You collapse on him, somebody else on the backside is going to be open. Then that was very apparent last night, big time. Wichita did not do a very good job. They covered Yax, but then Yax found Coleman cutting to the rim, or Vasquez was open for a jumper. So, and to his credit, he has taken on that role to, you know what, we just need to find a way to win, and I can get the ball to my teammates. If they want to concentrate on me, that's good. We've got a lot of good players here. So UAB is playing their best basketball right now, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch. And I mean, I know he's not a center, but he's still a bigger body, and it just, you kind of watch that and you go, and there's not a lot of guys that in his position would be leading their team in all those statistical categories. And you go and look at, the Nikola Jokic's of the world and players like that that just kind of transcend what you would traditionally think of a 6'9" power forward. And it's just absolutely remarkable what he's been able to do for UAB. And hopefully he is ready for a big game on Sunday in front of a packed house.
So UAB wins last night over the Shockers 80-72. The Blazers have now won 12 straight games when they've scored at least 80 points. UAB was top 5 in fast break points going into last night's game. The Blazers also improved to 17-3 when they score at least 80 points in a game. So this game against Memphis, so very important as you're trying to position yourself for the conference tournament. Unfortunately, the American Athletic Conference, Memphis, if they don't win the conference tournament, I think they will have serious considerations of getting a bid.
Yeah, I mean, they're in the top 25, yeah.
Based on their net ranking and based on their net wins in quad 1. But for schools like a UAB or a North Texas or somebody like that, I mean, it looks like they're going to have a run in their conference tournament to have a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're UAB, you get a win on Sunday, you're going to be tied atop the AAC standings with 3 losses right there with Memphis, and maybe you get a little hope down the stretch and you go into the conference tournament as a 1 seed. But nonetheless, as we've seen, and as you said, a team that kind of struggled a little bit early on in the year, and Yaxel even talking about taking some of the responsibility for maybe some of the struggles they had this year, but they have absolutely been a different team in conference play, and a win over Memphis is, I think, in a lot of people's eyes, going to make them the team to beat in the conference tournament.
We've already heard from Wimp Sanderson, Barrett Salee, and Yaxel Lindeborg. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we will talk to Blake Lovell from Southeastern 16, also Richard Hendricks, SEC basketball analyst. He'll join us in the 1 o'clock hour to kind of set the stage for this weekend's heavy docket in the Southeastern Conference. This is 3-Man Front. When we come back, we've got news coming out of college football in regards to some potential rule changes that the NCAA committee could be recommending to vote on. We'll get into that next on 3-Man Front. It is 11:31, Jocks 94.5 on this Friday. Thanks for making us a part of your day. Download the Jocks 94.5 app. Take us along wherever you go. Whether you want to watch us on YouTube, you can hit a button there on the Jocks 94.5 app. If you want to listen to the audio, you can do that as well from the privacy of your office, your home, or if you're traveling somewhere, put it on your Bluetooth. And we appreciate you listening. Download the Three Man Front podcast each and every day. Molly and Conrad do a great job as they highlight our interviews and some of the best moments of Landrum Roberts. So take advantage of that.
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of downloads this week because, the
not this
Landrum
week.
highlights are like 99% of our downloads.
Yeah, it's been a little slow.
Yeah.
Oh, we love Landrum. He'll be back with us on Monday. Okay, so the NCAA Football Rules Committee on Friday, they have proposed modifications to the injury timeout rules for the 2025-26 season. So they met in Indianapolis this week. They recommended that if medical personnel enter the field to evaluate an injured player after the ball is spotted by the officiating crew for the next play, that player's team would be charged a timeout. Now, one of the things that we had talked about before on that is that if a player was brought out of the game, that he potentially would not be available to come back in for that series.
Yes.
So now they're talking about charging a team with a timeout. Now, if the team does not have any timeouts remaining, a 5-yard delay of game penalty would be assessed. Do you like this, or did you like the potential of the other rule change?
I mean, it's a difficult one because it's obviously a serious issue, and we've seen certain programs that are worse offenders of it than others. And I do think, I don't have a problem with this rule change or this, potential rule change with charging a timeout. And then if you don't have a timeout, it's a 5-yard penalty, because essentially that is what it is, right? It's a delay of game. You're trying to buy time when these types of things are happening. You're trying to stall momentum. So I'm not opposed to that. I guess my question would just be, is this going to be strict enough to really kind of hammer home that we're getting rid of this? Because obviously taking somebody out for a series, that's going to get people's attention. And I think it is a drastic enough change to where it would kind of get rid of this and nip it in the bud right away. But I do wonder if maybe that's a little too severe in certain circumstances. So, I'm not opposed to going to this rule change. And if for whatever reason it continues to be prevalent, then you kind of up the penalty. But yeah, I don't have a problem with the charging a timeout.
If it is determined that a player has faked an injury to manipulate the rules, the offending team's conference is notified, and any possible disciplinary action can be made by the conference office.
Like, are you going to suspend a guy for that, though?
Well, you saw what Commissioner Sankey sent out last year towards the back end of the season.
Wasn't that suspending a coach?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So if they deem it or they deem in their opinion that you are manipulating the rules, that you're going to be turned into your conference office. Okay.
I mean, again, it's just one of those, how strongly or how strictly is this going to be enforced? But okay. I mean, yeah, if that's what you're going to do, is you're going to turn somebody in and hope that the conferences handle it the same way. That would be my one thing is, okay, if you're going to turn it into the conferences, then do the conferences all need to come together and agree these are the ways that you can punish a coach or a player for that? Because, what if you have, one conference we're like, okay, well, we're going to suspend, a coach for a game. And then another conference, it's okay, well, we're going to fine a coach $100,000 or something like that. And then you have a discrepancy in how, fair that might be across different conferences. So that would be my question there.
Meanwhile, overtime timeouts. Now, keep in mind that Kirby Smart is the chairperson of the NCAA coaches portion of the rules committee.
Nice.
Committee members also proposed that if a game reaches a third overtime, each team would have one timeout to use until the game is concluded. Currently, teams are allotted one timeout for each overtime period. At the start of the third overtime, teams alternate running 2-point plays until a winner is decided. Committee members don't think the game should be stopped for timeouts when there are only 2 plays per extra period if a game reaches a third overtime.
So essentially you'd have one opportunity to line up and say, all right, looks like they're going to stop this, call a timeout and do a different play. I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
That way you kind of get to the business
I was about to say, it kind of
getting a
speeds it
winner.
up, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that.
Some other rule proposals out there. It was recommended that when the decision on instant replay is announced, the referee say only the call on the field is upheld or overturned. The terms confirmed and stands would not be used.
Okay.
Okay,
Sure.
cool.
Why?
Whoop-de-doo.
Like you're having a meeting about that?
Right.
About the terminology?
Please tell me that one took about 2 minutes of time to. I hope they didn't spend a lot of time deliberating on that.
All right, here's another proposal for you that no player be in the direct line of the snap to the potential kicker or punts. No player could be within the frame of the snapper. It would be an illegal formation if the team doesn't have the required number of players on the line. Also, if the snapper is on the end of the line by formation, the snapper would lose scrimmage kick protection and the opposition could line a player over the snapper.
No, I don't like that. That's going to de-incentivize fake punts, trick plays, things like that, I would imagine. Yeah, no, I do not like that rule.
Yeah,
because
so
those are already so few and far between. Like,
Yeah.
let them get creative with it.
Recommended that if any player on a kickoff return makes a T signal during the kick, that would be whistled dead.
Okay, so I get.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it's just trying to cut down on those situations where it's did they or did they not call for a fair catch, that kind of thing. I mean, okay. Don't feel strongly one way or the other.
Also being proposed an enhanced rule regarding words or signals that distract opponents when they are preparing to put the ball in play. No player could call defensive signals that simulate the sound or cadence of the offensive signals. The defensive terms move and stem would be reserved for players at that side of the ball and could not be used by the offense.
Again, see, that's just one of those where I feel like you would have penalty where, and maybe after a couple of years, people would start to understand that. But I mean, those are like common terms that could get messy pretty quickly. Now, I agree in the sense of, and I know they've already addressed this, but clapping and trying to, confuse the offensive line with the snap count and stuff. I don't think there's any place for that. I'm not a fan of that, but we're going to start banning what words you can say while you're on the field. I don't know.
That's a lot of responsibility.
And I don't like that.
Also recommended that after the 2-minute timeout in either half, if the defense commits a foul with 12 or more players on the field and they participate in the play, the officials would administer a 5-yard penalty. The offensive team would have the option to reset the game clock back to the time of the start of the play. If the 12th player is attempting to leave the field and has no influence on the play, the defensive team would be penalized 5 yards with no adjustment to the game clock.
The Dan Lanning
I
rule.
was about to say, yeah, thanks, Dan Lanning.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I don't have a problem. It was cool. See, and those are the kinds of things where it was cool when you used it in the game because nobody knew about that rule and it was a loophole. And great, you got your one time. Let's get rid of it. Yep.
So good
Fine
news for the FCS. The Rules Committee is proposing that coach-to-player communication will be approved in the FCS. It was only in the FBS level. So Samford would be able to have the communication from the coaches to the players. So
wasn't the only concern about the, I guess, financials of being able to, because we had some schools, right, that, when they played Alabama or Auburn, for example, they had to buy all the headsets for the whole season, but they could only use it in that one game. So yeah, I'm
fine with that.
All for that.
Yeah.
And finally, they had some conversation about targeting. It says the committee had a thorough discussion about player health and safety, including the targeting rule. The committee will seek conference commissioner feedback and further discussion on player safety rules.
That is going to be controversial for the rest of American football history. I don't think we're ever going to have a definite on targeting and how that's assessed and what referees consider targeting versus which ones don't consider targeting. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad to know they're still talking about it. It's not gonna change anything.
So those are the rules in regards to what they are proposing. Now it is a recommendation. It's a proposal. It will be voted on at a later date, but it is pretty interesting to say the very least. Some news coming out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Good news?
Bill Belichick in North Carolina will be featured on Hard Knocks.
No way.
Wait, so are they doing an NFL Hard Knocks too, or just?
They are not. They could not find an NFL team
Yeah,
to be a part of Hard Knocks.
that was going to happen one of these days.
Yeah.
So North Carolina and Bill Belichick has stepped up, and
Oh, I'm excited for that.
Okay, yeah.
I'm really excited for that.
so they will
Sign me
have.
up.
So they will have a. I'm sure a camera with Coach Bill's girlfriend,
Jordan.
Jordan,
Mhm.
at the sorority house there in Chapel Hill.
That's going to be okay. That's going to be interesting. I'm here for
excited.
that. Yeah, that'll be the most excited I've been for Hard Knocks in a
Yeah.
handful of
I mean,
years.
it'll be better than like the Bears like we had last
How
year.
could the NFL not just tell one of the teams?
Hey, you're gonna do it.
Yeah, that's how. Well, because there's a criteria. I
Correct.
forgot exactly what it is, but it's something like
It's depending on the cycle and when you were.
essentially like you have to have not made the playoffs in the last 2 years or something like
Yeah.
that. So it's only going to be the bad teams, quote, that I guess could be qualified for Hard Knocks. But yeah, force somebody to do it. But I guess at the same time, I mean, they've been doing it for so many years now, and I feel like there's a lot of teams that have probably said, maybe we kind of regret doing Hard Knocks and certain things that came out, or just the distractions of all the cameras around. And yeah, I just think a lot of people aren't. I don't know. I like the mix up though. Good for Hard Knocks. I think that'll be very entertaining. Maybe his dog will show up too,
So no,
like at the draft.
Yeah.
So no NFL team. So you're going to get Bill Belichick. Very interesting.
I
to
like
say the
that.
least.
I'm excited to watch that personally.
I just hope he's a little bit more personable.
See, and that's my thing
Yeah.
is, they're gonna have to have somebody. Hey, maybe Jordan will be the personality. Maybe she'll be the one that talks the most. And
I mean,
Gives
she
the
was in the
insight.
commercial with them.
yeah, that's
The
she will.
Duncan commercial. So
That's true. Or maybe it'll be a lot of Lombardi on there.
It's just,
Yeah. What
They
an
weren't-
interesting day.
it's just some of the stuff we're seeing on our monitors is just.
A lot of things going on today. But yeah, no, Hard Knocks. I'm excited for that with Chapel Hill. It'll be interesting to see if this kind of is the start of, maybe they alternate. You do 1 year in the NFL, then 1 year in college, and 1
Yeah.
year in the NFL. Maybe 1 year they come and do Hard Knocks for the Stallions. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there if they want to mix it up a little bit. But
I can't wait to come in there during the break and see what you guys are looking at because I have a different monitor than y'all do.
Interesting times we live in.
to be on a fly on the wall for some of these conversations.
More three-man front on this Filthy Friday. This is Jocks 94.5. At the top of the hour, we'll talk some SEC basketball with Blake Lovell from Southeastern 16 as we'll set the stage for a very busy, and of course, the gauntlet continues for SEC teams. Bama at Tennessee, Auburn visiting Rupp Arena.
Well, there's a couple guys on the monitors in here in the studio that could probably benefit from trying out Easy Hemp Co. because Easy is a refreshing new beverage that's reliably microdosed with 3 milligrams of D9 THC and 3 milligrams of CBD per serving. It's also non-alcoholic and free of any added sugar, so there's no day after hangover effects for you to worry about. Plus, as we get into the warmer months of the year here, it's a great way for you to stay hydrated. Easy Hemp Co. is based right here in Birmingham, Alabama, and if you are looking for that social buzz with no regrets, then look no further than Easy Hemp Co. It's available at Piggly Wigglies across the state, or you can visit them online at easyhempco.com to have it shipped directly to your doorstep, or use their Easy Finder map to find a location near you.
So ESPN personality Pat McAfee revealed this week that his contract with the college football playoff that created his Field Pass simulcast of college football games, it is over, it has expired, and he was quoted as saying the contract is up. I don't know if that's ever going to happen again. It was a great time, end of quote.
I mean, I know how he is just in general, but did something controversial happen to where they wouldn't want to renew that? Or maybe it just didn't, viewership wise, it just didn't really do anything for ESPN or move the needle. So they're just kind of done with it, but interesting.
So yeah, I never watched it.
I didn't either.
But I know,
Me neither.
I know that there are folks that enjoy that additional, just like there's some folks that like to watch the high eye in the sky camera.
Yeah, the all 22 view or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever the case may be, as opposed to, watching, depends on what you want. So yeah, the 2-year deal that he had to do those has come to a close, and he has said that he does not see that coming back.
He did. I know also yesterday on his program, we talked about it. I brought it up a couple days ago because there was a report coming out. But according to Travis Kelce is coming back, and he is energized after the way that the season ended. And he seemingly confirmed yesterday that Travis Kelce will, in fact, be returning. And now I guess they're previewing Hard Knocks.
Peter Schrager from the NFL Network, he is there in Indianapolis. And he was talking about the players the quarterbacks that have been there in Indy interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
The quarterbacks will throw tomorrow. Cam Ward will not be throwing. Shedeur Sanders will not be throwing. They will throw at their pro days. And Cam Ward was giving interviews today, talking to the media.
Tape speaks for itself.
And Jackson Dart has been an overwhelming big plus guy this week in Indy. They said that according to Peter Schrager, he has hit home run after home run with every NFL team he has spoken to, and that Jackson Dart, depending on his performance tomorrow, he could walk out of Indy as being one of the guys that has improved their stock the most.
Wow.
Hotty toddy.
Yeah, I mean,
I know you're excited.
I'm not going to be surprised if he's the third quarterback that you see taken in the draft, because that was kind of, again, as we've talked about before, that was one of the guys that going into the offseason, you had a lot of NFL people saying, hey, keep an eye on Jackson Dart. This is a guy that, with a good combine, good interviews, good pro day, he's probably going to skyrocket up some boards. So very good to see that, he's been doing very well. And, he fits the mold of what NFL teams want now, right? He's an accurate passer. He can move the ball down the field. He can make a lot of the throws you want him to make, but he's also got a little bit of that wiggle and some ability with his legs. I will say the other quarterback that I think a lot of people here will be interested to see in the draft is obviously Jalen Milroe. We know he's going to throw at the combine. Did you see the report this morning that he is going to throw at the combine, but he is not going to run the 40-yard dash? I would think that would be probably one of his better exercises, one of his better numbers at the combine. So kind of interesting that he is choosing not to do that, but he is going to throw.
Now, Jalen Milroe will throw.
No, that's what I'm saying. He will throw, but he will not run.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess we don't really have many questions about his ability to run, but he could do himself some favors with the good showing at the combine. He could also continue to build on what we saw in Mobile and flounder a little bit. We'll see.
Yeah. Now is the right time to talk about the health and safety of trees on your property and around your house. That's why you need to call Golston Tree Service today, because it's run by certified arborist, 205-337-4018. I was out in the yard last weekend and I noticed that one of my oak trees in the back, I noticed some mushrooms that was growing up on the trunk of the tree up towards the top. And so I called Golston Tree Service because I'm like, hey, I don't know what this
You didn't eat them?
Is this normal? Is this what's going on here? And they told me that they're going to keep an eye on it, but that could be some trouble that is brewing down the road. So it's a big old oak tree that could easily fall on my house. And so that's why you need to get a professional like Golston Tree Service to come out to your house. And if you've had something that has fallen and you need cut up and taken away, they can do that. But more importantly, let's talk about prevention. Let's talk about them having a professional arborist being able to give you their professional opinion. And that's totally free. He will come to your property and he will do that. But call them at 205-337-4018. Call Michael there at Golston Tree Service. He can take care of you. Over 35 years of experience in the business. And they also have 24-hour emergency storm work availability. So if something happens overnight with one of these storms that we're going to be getting soon, with the spring season and those storms rolling in through Birmingham, they can take care of you. They've been at the lake. They've been in Metro Birmingham working on stuff this week. So give them a call, 205-337-4018.
Well, coming up here in about 7 or 8 minutes, we're going to be joined by our good friend Blake Lovell to preview another great weekend of SEC hoops here around the conference. But before we do that, we have some time, 205-834-9450. We're going to get to your text. But first, let's go to the phone lines where Chris has been waiting by patiently. Chris wants to weigh in on Alabama basketball, it looks like. Chris, how are we doing on this Friday?
Just taking it day by day, just want to talk about, I feel the Bama women aren't getting enough coverage. I mean, they did have an upset win last night against Kim Mulkey's LSU team. And they did win an eyeball the week before, man. You got to give them some love, man. Clap it up for them, man. What we doing?
You're absolutely right, Chris. Yeah, they won in overtime last night against LSU. Had a big block there in the final seconds to close it out against Kim Mulkey, and like you said, yeah, they did beat Auburn. So they're a top 25 team. They're looking pretty sharp.
Refs did everything that could to make sure Kim Mulkey get another win. Sure they haven't been. Sure they haven't been necessarily up to snuff when it comes to these things they probably shouldn't, or I wish they would have beat South Carolina that time. But hey, you take what you can get, and it looks like they can make the finals also. And I got one more last thing before I hang up. A nomination for your little segment for you said Conrad's corner or
worst thing I've seen.
Worst thing I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say people have been sleeping on the rug, but I say Steve Smith Sr. We gotta just address that.
Yeah.
That's a bad story too.
Those texts were raunchy. You guys take care.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you, Chris. Yeah,
You've had a lot of material to work with over the last few weeks.
Been a fun week on social media. Yeah, I'll be completely honest. I'd kind of forgotten about the Steve Smith thing the last couple of days until that. But yeah, maybe we'll share that later.
Is there anything new on the Ole Miss front?
I saw where the boyfriend came out with a statement similar to the girlfriend and her family that did yesterday that we shared on the air. But I mean, it's the same. This is true or this is all false. We've been
Wow.
This is all false. People have been, attacking my family. It's not right.
Conrad's the one that's been spreading these things.
I know. No. It was, on par with what you got from the girlfriend and her family. So they're all saying it's all untrue and they don't appreciate all the attention that it's been getting and slandering their good family names.
Well, the big story this hour, outside of what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now, is the fact that Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heel football team will be doing Hard Knocks this year. No NFL teams. They're now diving into the college football world. Later on in the program, Conrad's going to tell us about episode 2. He's been watching the Alabama behind the scenes on Fox Nation.
The Tides That Bind. It's actually been pretty good.
Do they?
Not last year.
Blake Lovell, Southeastern 16. He'll join the program next. It's the Friday edition of Three Man Front. It is 12 noon on this Friday. Welcome in. This is Three Man Front. Pat, Conrad, Molly. Landry will be back with us on Monday. A lot of basketball talk in the couple hours of the show, including UAB's big win last night over Wichita State, 80-72. They will face off against Memphis, Pac Bartow on Sunday afternoon. Tickets are very difficult to come by. If you want to go to the game, I would suggest you go to uabsports.com right now and try to get those tickets because it is almost a hard sellout there at Bartow Arena. It should be a good game. Alabama's getting ready to make the trip to Rocky Top, take on the Tennessee Volunteers. Auburn also on the road this weekend as they will play Kentucky. Samford was a winner last night at VMI 95-83. And to talk about this incredible docket that we have each and every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday, Blake Lovell from Southeastern 16 joins us here on Three Man Front. Just another boring weekend upcoming, Blake. What you got planned?
Yeah, no big deal, guys. Just top 16, 17 games. Then you got Missouri at Vanderbilt. You got Georgia and Texas, who may be the last two teams in or out at this point, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, just not much happening in this 8-game slate tomorrow.
All right, so let's start off here in the state of Alabama. Well, they're not going to be playing in the state of Alabama, but the Crimson Tide going up to Rocky Top, a top 6 matchup there. It looks like the winner of this game, Blake, will be on the 1 seed line, maybe the loser falling to the 2 seed if that's Alabama on the losing end at least. But how do you see this matchup playing out? Because Tennessee's been a tough place for a lot of teams, but especially for Alabama here in recent memory. But maybe the performance against Mississippi State carries over for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, that if it does, it would certainly buck a trend that we've seen from Tennessee against Alabama in the Nate Oates era. You know, I brought up the stat this week. Alabama has not scored more than 74 points against Tennessee in the Nate Oates era. And you think about how many times Alabama scored 90 plus, 100 plus this season. And you're like, why does it always come back to this Tennessee team that just seems to have their number when it comes to playing the style? And I think that's what this really comes down to, right? I mean, you look at some of these recent scores that they've had over the years. You know, last season, Tennessee gets the win in Tuscaloosa 81-74, 91-71 in Knoxville, 68-59, 73-68, 73-68. And you just keep going. Like, these are kind of how these games have gone for Alabama, is Tennessee seemingly, with Rick Barnes' defensive approach, always finds a way to hold them down to a much lower number than you would expect from a team like Alabama. So I think that's the most interesting thing here. And you guys know, when this Alabama team goes to Knoxville, like you said, it has been frustrating, especially, look back a couple of years ago, the 31-16. They go in there and score 59 points. And everybody's talking about, the free throw numbers and Tennessee's bumping and physical and all this other stuff. But that's just how it works against this Tennessee team. So can Alabama handle the physicality against Tennessee? Can they embrace the fact that you're probably not going to get some calls that you normally get, because Tennessee has simply perfected, how they play defense? They're the number 1 defensive team in the country. And usually I'm like, hey, give me the offensive team over the defensive team. But I mean, sometimes in this matchup, it's kind of played in Tennessee's favor. So who controls the pace of play and the style here? Tennessee's done it for years. Can they keep that going?
All right, so let's just play this out. If Tennessee does win against Alabama, and let's say Alabama splits between Florida and Auburn remaining on their schedule, where do you anticipate Alabama finishing up in regards to the bracketology before we head to Nashville for the SEC tournament? Are they on the 1 line or 2 line?
That's going to be interesting, right? Because now you're kind of in a situation where you're looking at what most projections are. And I know Lenardi has said that he thinks that, this is basically a 1-seed elimination game tomorrow between these two teams. And I don't know if I completely agree with that, just because I think, as always, it's also a matter of what are the teams around you doing. And when you look at, look, Duke's locked it up. I don't think Duke's losing out on that 1 seed. I think Auburn has certainly locked up their 1 seed. With Houston, I mean, they're kind of in a position now where, the metrics love them, all these things. Look at the games they have down the stretch. Now, if they were to lose a home game, to Cincinnati, something like that, that may change things a little bit. Even Kansas, I mean, that's kind of a loss that the way Kansas has played recently is not the best. But I think there's still a chance, just based on the strength of the schedule for Alabama, to still get the 3-1 seeds for the SEC. But again, if Tennessee wins this game tomorrow, Tennessee's pretty set. Now, we say that, right? They still got a home game against South Carolina and all that, and so you just never know. But based on the projections, I would think that the winner of this game certainly puts themselves in a great position to get that second one seed for the SEC. But if we're talking a third, then I think you're looking at a scenario where, all right, Alabama can lose the Tennessee game, but then it's got to beat Florida at home, and then maybe it's a situation where you beat Auburn. Because we talk about this, too, in the context of what does the SEC tournament mean? And unfortunately, it seems like in recent years, the SEC tournament has meant nothing for the teams that go the furthest. So I can't even kind of project what that's going to look like. The committee has kind of told us that they don't really value that all that much.
So no doubt about it, Blake, Auburn is the best team in the country right now, and they have been for essentially the entire season. But they now have to go tomorrow to a place they haven't won since the late 80s in Rupp Arena and face a Kentucky team coming off just a wild win over Oklahoma a couple nights ago. Obviously, what Otega Oweh did down the stretch there was so impressive, but this is a Kentucky team. You got Lamont Butler back. You got Jackson Robinson back. They look like they're finally healthy, or at least healthier than they have been. So how do you see this one going for Auburn? Do you think they're just going to handle their business and business as usual for the Tigers, or do you think Kentucky has a real shot at knocking off the number one team in the country at home?
Yeah, that's the thing is I think, it's sort of a situation where they got Jackson Robinson back the other night, but it doesn't sound like he's going to play tomorrow, I don't think, based on what I just heard Mark Pope say. And I wonder if that's, again, it's like every time with Kentucky, you think you've finally gotten your full assortment of guys back. And I just don't know if that's going to be the case. And I think, obviously they're still missing Kirk Creesa too. So it seems like Butler will play. It doesn't sound like Robinson. I think the quote was that, he's just not sure. And he talked about it sort of not so great, I think was the thing after the game the other night. And so that's always the question, right, with Kentucky, who's going to play? Because we just have never known that answer for these guys for literally probably the past month or so. And I think from that standpoint, if you're looking at it and saying you just don't know who's going to be in the floor, and even if they are available to play, how many minutes are they going to play? Like, I think that's also a question here. You've got to feel like Auburn is in a good position to finally end the streak here. And I think it's just because if we're coming out of this and we're saying, what's the reason that Auburn goes in and wins this game? I don't think it's much different than what we said about the Alabama game. And I think that would be Denver Jones is probably going to be the MVP because of the perimeter defense that he brings for a team that now has to guard a Kentucky team that we know that can absolutely shoot the lights out, especially in Lexington. And so if you have that sort of scenario where Denver Jones is playing well on the defensive end of the floor, he's not allowing Kentucky to get some of those open shots, whoever it is that he's guarding at different times in the game, I think that's going to be the big difference here. And of course, I think the other thing is that, what does Auburn not do that well sometimes? They don't do that well not fouling. And Kentucky's not really a team that's going to challenge you a ton in terms of getting to the free throw line. So I think that's something where those things play in Auburn's favor. And we can also say the Kentucky defense, right? They're so up and down at times in their defensive consistency. And who can blame them when you don't have your regular rotation? I like Auburn's spot here. Now, I say that knowing how well Kentucky can play at home, but I think this is a good spot for Auburn.
Talking to Blake Lovell, Southeastern 16 here on Three Man Front, joins us each and every Friday, setting the stage for a very exciting weekend of SEC basketball. So let me ask you about Florida. Just a bump in the road? Is this a bigger problem you feel? What you saw from the Georgia game? Are you still confident this Florida team could be one of the teams from the SEC that could make a Final Four?
Yeah, I think it's just one of those games. And I think, when we really look at Florida's overall body of work, they've only had one other of those games this season. I mean, they've lost 4 games, but there's no shame in the 106-100 game at Kentucky. I mean, they scored 100 points. Kentucky just happened to score 106. I'm not sure anybody would have beaten Kentucky on that day the way they were playing. They lose the Missouri game at home by a point. And so, yes, the Tennessee loss where they score 44 on the road, you're like, whoa, where did that come from? Well, a week later they beat Auburn on the road. And they went in and just dominated Mississippi State. They've dominated other teams at home. And I think this is one we're seeing, not just with Georgia, but we've seen Vanderbilt, we've seen Arkansas. These teams that are highly motivated and know their season's on the line, they're going to play their best basketball. And we've seen that from some of these teams down the stretch here. And that's where, look, guys, if we play that out, 100 times, that probably the only time you're playing Florida versus Georgia of that 100 where Georgia has a 26-point lead in the first half. And I just don't think you're going to get that ever again. And I feel like that's one of those that just happens throughout the course of a 30-something game season sometimes, even to the best teams maybe. But, Florida comes all the way back, takes the lead. Georgia just happens to hit a couple big shots at the end. So I don't really look at this as anything more than just one of those games. And keep in mind, too, that was kind of the first game that Florida had everybody. I mean, they got Micah Henlogden back, whatever it was, a couple weeks ago now. That was the first time they've had their full rotation. So am I surprised that maybe those lineups a little bit early on were not exactly meshing well together? Probably not. Now, not to the level of getting down that many points, but I think still, if you're looking at upside, I think Florida, to me, probably 4-5 in the rankings in terms of upside right now, just in terms of the teams in the country. And so I think they're going to be fine.
Southeastern 16's Blake Lovell joining us here on Three Man Front, as he has done all throughout the SEC basketball season. We enjoy talking with him each and every Friday here. All right, so let me ask you about the team that Florida is going to be playing this weekend, because, for me, of the SEC teams that are in the top 25, securely in the NCAA tournament field, I feel like Texas A&M is the hardest one for me to kind of figure out and understand what I'm going to get from them on a game in and game out basis. So how do you view Texas A&M now heading into the postseason, going into this matchup against Florida? Because it's been a little bit of rough go for them the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's wild, guys, because I've been playing this game throughout the week, and I've been asking people, I'm like, all right, I'm going to give you some numbers here, and you tell me how many wins you think this team has, and also tell me which SEC team this describes. And if I gave you 312th nationally in effective field goal percentage, 243rd nationally in turnover percentage, 325 in three-point percentage, 268 in two-point percentage, and 266 in free throw percentage. And I said, tell me how many wins that team has and which is the SEC team. And if I've done that to some people this week, and without any context, they're like, boy, that sounds like South Carolina. It's Texas A&M who has 20 wins, right? I mean, that is just wild, isn't it? They have 20 wins on the heels of those offensive numbers. Now, it helps that they're the number one offensive rebounding team in the country. So in all these misses that are going up, they're getting rebounds on them. And that's a good thing, because if they weren't, they wouldn't have 20 wins. Now, it also helps they're a top 10 defensive team. But if, like you said, if you're wondering why they're the hardest team to figure out, it's because you're trying to figure out how they're winning some of these games, despite just some awful shooting percentages. And I think that is something that we talk about, teams that need the right matchup to make a run in March. A&M is officially one of those teams that we thought maybe for a while there was not the case with them. They were building up a good resume, 20-5, all this. But now when you see kind of the way these last three games have played out for them, and now you put it in the context of these shooting numbers, they have officially, to me, become a team that they have to have the right matchup to make a run. Because you know what this reminds me of? A couple of years ago, it's a completely different team. But think about a couple of years ago where A&M's offensive numbers were better, but they were still poor shooting the ball. That team that won 25 games, went 15-3 in the SEC. What happened? They got to the NCAA tournament as a 7 seed, and they played a number 10 seed Penn State, who could absolutely shoot the ball like nobody's business. They were a top 10 team in three-point shooting, and they came out, and it was just bombs away on Texas A&M. A&M had no answer for it. That's my worry for them again this year, is that they're going to come out and play one of these teams that can shoot the ball really well, and they're going to try to play catch-up shooting the three, and if that happens, they're going to get beat by 20.
All right, so Blake, give me one team that is trending in the right direction that is considered a bubble team right now from the SEC, and which of those bubble teams is going in the wrong direction?
Yeah, I think, and I'll just say this, I know Vanderbilt fans have not agreed with me, and I get it. They want to play the reverse mojo game. They want a little superstition. I understand, but I think Vanderbilt's off the bubble. I think they're in. And so I'm going to take them out of the group, because I think that they're going to wind up getting in after that win at A&M. Arkansas, to me, is obviously the team that is heading in the right direction. And I say that knowing that, man, do they have a tricky game tomorrow at South Carolina. The Gamecocks have been so good at home. And I'm like, could this be the game that keeps Arkansas out? Do they get all this momentum finally and they lose this game at South Carolina? Could very well happen. And then they got to go to Vanderbilt after that. So it's just such a tricky stretch. But I think you've got to like the way Arkansas is playing right now. And I think they're getting closer to being in that range where just maybe get 2 or 3 here down the stretch, and you're absolutely a lock. And it may only take one, but I don't think losing at South Carolina would be advised at this point. The team that's heading in the wrong direction, I don't think there's any question that, to me, it's probably Oklahoma. And I know that, I guess, Lenardi's bracket this morning, I don't know how other people feel. Actually, I probably do, that Oklahoma is still ahead of teams like Texas and Georgia. But I'm looking at sort of the scenario. And the reason why is pretty simple, is because they have the 3 non-conference wins that are really good. But I don't even trust that Oklahoma is going to win another game the rest of the year. They're at Ole Miss, they're at Texas, they're home against Missouri. And I feel like that's the kind of loss last Saturday on Wednesday against Kentucky that can just break you, where it comes down to that final possession, you lose that game, and now you have to turn around and go play an Ole Miss team that has something to prove because they've not been playing well. I'm not thinking Oklahoma is going to make this deal. Now, they might end up doing it, and it may just be because they win that game against Texas, and that's sort of an elimination game. But I don't like the way they're playing, and I think even you could put Texas in that category, of course, too, the way their last couple of games have gone. But I think Oklahoma is the one that I would maybe feel even a little bit more confident in Georgia than I would Oklahoma right now.
So you just talked about them for a second there, Blake, and I just want to see if you can expand on it a little bit. But you brought up Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt, I mean, they've been so impressive this year. You got wins over Tennessee, Kentucky, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M now in your last couple of games. They have some really, really impressive wins, and just what a turnaround it's been from last year. But how dangerous do you think this Vanderbilt team can be in the NCAA tournament? Because I think this is going to be one of those teams that you're going to see people when they fill out their brackets. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a number of people, picking Vanderbilt to potentially be a Sweet 16 kind of team.
No, absolutely. I think they have the feel of a team that can win a couple games, and that's why, they need to get out of the 8-9 game, which I don't know that they're going to be able to do. I think that's probably where they're going to wind up because if you're in the 8-9, you're going to get paired with either Duke or Houston. And I just don't think that's a second-round matchup that you would love. But let's say they were to fall down to a 10 or something like that, and you look at them potentially against a couple of these 2 seeds that maybe feel a little bit more vulnerable. I think that's absolutely a recipe for success. And, of course, could they get up to a 7? I think if Vanderbilt were to win out, now keep in mind they play Missouri, Arkansas, and at Georgia. I think there's a chance they can win both these home games against Missouri and Arkansas the way they've been playing and, just go win at Georgia. I think Vanderbilt absolutely can get up to a 7 seed at that point. And so I think that's what you're shooting for if you're the Commodores, because I've said all year with them, they do 2 things so well. They don't turn the ball over, and then, oh, by the way, they turn you over. And when you can do those 2 things, I think that makes the game so much easier. And I also would say probably top 3 in the SEC in terms of execution and how they actually run their offense. Like, they do such a good job of basically, and we knew this with Mark Byington. That's why they hired him. Like, his offensive style has been studied by other coaches out there because you just look at the way that they execute their game plan. They space you out. They get out in transition. And they're just really hard to defend. And I think for that reason, like I mentioned, they're the kind of team, I mentioned A&M, that's the kind of team that's going to be a really tough problem for a team like Texas A&M and other teams out there that are trying to do it just one way, because I think Vanderbilt is versatile enough that they can beat you in multiple ways. And I think it speaks to how good of a coach that Mark Byington is. And think about this too, right? Any other year, how it would be an absolute layup that Mark Byington would be the SEC Coach of the Year. This year, he's probably 3rd or 4th in the voting behind Bruce Pearl, Dennis Gates, whatever order you want to put him in. That just shows you how good the league's been this year, and that shows you how remarkable some of these stories have been for some of these teams like a Vanderbilt.
Well, these storylines will not go away as we get a day closer to the SEC basketball tournament in Nashville. Blake, we always appreciate your time, and as always, you can go find Blake and his outstanding crew, including I'll even throw Brian Edwards in that group too. I mean, I really don't want to because I've known Brian.
I mean, listen, I understand.
But I appreciate you giving him an opportunity to be on the air. So that's good. But yes, the instant reaction that you can get on YouTube, go follow Southeastern 16. You guys do just a fantastic job, and we'll talk to you next Friday.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. That's Blake Lovell joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, and it's a great opportunity for you to make that short drive to Trustful and go see the fine folks there at Courtesy GMC. And I want you to go by, and I want you to put your eyes, and I want you to sit behind the wheel of a Sierra AT4X. You're not going to find a better deal anywhere, and I mean anywhere. You can look at the numbers that's on the windshield. You can go to courtesybirmingham.com and check it out online, and you can compare against any other GMC dealer, and you're not going to find a better deal on the Sierra AT4X than what you're going to find right there at Courtesy GMC. The outstanding pricing, $11,000 off MSRP. They have multiple to choose from. They also have the SLT Premium Plus package on those Sierra trucks. They're almost gone, but there's $13,000 off MSRP. Other dealerships are still trying to get rid of their 2024 models. Courtesy has 2025s at 2024 pricing. So you get the theme here. You're going to save a lot of money by making that very short drive. Don't go anywhere else. Go to Trustful Courtesy GMC, located right there on Edwards Lake Road off of I-459 exit 32. They also have the 2025 Sierra Denali, up to $13,000 off that vehicle, 22-inch wheels. CourtesyBirmingham.com. Go by and see Drew Lawley, Josh Gargis, and the fantastic team there at Courtesy GMC. When we come back on Three Man Front, we'll unpack some of the stuff that Blake had to say about the SEC basketball tournament, some college football news as well. This is the Friday edition of Three Man Front. $1224, Jocks 94.5. Thanks for tuning us in on this beautiful Friday. Should be a great weekend out there. And We do have a little bit of news coming out of the NFL, Conrad, in the quarterback situation with the Los Angeles Rams.
Absolutely. Sorry to any Giants and Raiders fans out there. Your Matthew Stafford dreams are officially over. This news coming out literally in the last 30 seconds or so. But the Los Angeles Rams and Matthew Stafford have reached agreement on a restructured deal that will keep him with the Rams. And now the Giants and Raiders and any other teams on the quarterback carousel are left looking for other options. But that seemed to be, in my opinion, the best case for Matthew Stafford, right? If you want another chance to potentially win a championship. I mean, hey, this was the Rams got closer than anybody else at beating the Eagles in the playoffs this year. So he goes back to Los Angeles, and I guess that's where he will finish his career, I would assume.
Also, earlier this morning, the University of Alabama football team, they announced that A-Day will be Saturday, April the 12th. There's a little bit of spin to it. One, the good news is that you will get in free.
That is very good.
Yep. You can walk through the gates and you can go watch whatever rendition of a scrimmage, A-Day, whatever they're going to call it. The bad news is for those that do not attend in person, there will not be a live feed of the game. And I'll be honest with you, this marks really maybe the first time. I mean, again, exclude the COVID.
I mean, I can't remember in my lifetime not being able to watch it on,
Well,
even
we'll
if it
have
was
Conrad
on.
in there.
Yes.
Well, okay, so that's what I was going to bring up. All right, so I made the promise a couple of weeks ago. I said I wasn't going to attend an Alabama football game this year because I'm bad luck, and our listeners think that anytime I go, Alabama's just going to lose. So I said, I'm going to stay away for a year. We'll see how it goes, and then we'll reassess my attendance. Am I allowed to go to A-Day? Because technically Alabama can't lose that game.
Molly has spoken.
With you there, they might. You never know.
It might be a 0-0 tie.
Okay, well, then I'll stay away. Thought I might take Paige down there, have a nice family day
Well,
down
her
in
and Bucky can
Tuscaloosa.
go, but you need to stay here.
Okay, well, I'll get her to report back to me.
Yes. So April 12th is going to be a very busy day. If you do plan on attending the festivities on A-Day in Tuscaloosa, you got track and field, the Crimson Tide Invitational. That's going to be going on all day there at the track and field stadium. Then you've got the football game or whatever it is at 12 noon. You have baseball as they host Mississippi State.
Ooh.
It's going to be a great game.
That is going to be that's a 2:00 first pitch at Sewell Thomas Stadium. And then at Rhodes Stadium at 2:30, Alabama takes on Oklahoma.
Oh,
Ooh,
man.
what a weekend.
And I'm not going to be able to be there. Thanks, Molly.
Now you can go to baseball and softball.
You just can't go to football.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
We haven't tested out that theory yet.
Yeah. So you got track and field in the morning. You got football at noon. You've got baseball against Mississippi State at 2. And then you've got softball against Oklahoma at 2:30. So you can just make the rounds.
That's a heck of a day right there.
Yeah,
I know.
it is. It's a lot of fun.
And the, let's see here. There will be the track and field is free. Football is free. You do have to buy tickets to the baseball and softball.
Yeah, and unfortunately, just with the timing of that and the where they are on campus, the walk from Rhodes Stadium to the Joe or vice versa is a little difficult to make. But I'm sure they'll have shuttles and things like that. But yeah, that would be great. Go and watch the A-Day game and either go and catch the baseball game a little late or softball a little late, or get out of there after a couple hours, depending on how long the scrimmage takes, and make a day of it down there. So yeah, good for anybody that's going to be in attendance. That'll be a fun day.
We will continue to take your phone calls. We're open until 1:30. Our next guest is Richard Hendricks from the SEC Network. We would love to hear from you at 1-800-239-WJOX. The Courtesy GMC text line is open as well, 205-834-9450. 1232 Jocks 94.5. Phone lines are open at 1-800-239-WJOX. The courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450. Let's go to the phones. David is next up on the program. Hey, David, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, fellas. Pat Smith. I'm disappointed, man.
Uh-oh, what did
You
I
left
do?
off a huge event happening that same weekend.
The same weekend, you're talking about April the 12th weekend, correct?
Yeah, the weekend. Yeah. Friday night, April 11th, the Birmingham Stallions' first home game of the year.
Oh, okay. All right.
You could roll some football Friday evening, Friday night, straight into A-Day, and all those other events.
That would be
That's going to be a massive weekend.
That is
massive.
No, that is good, and one thing's for sure that I wasn't like not thinking about the UFL. I was just mainly thinking about what's going on in Tuscaloosa. But you're right, that is going to be a very fun. It's going to be interesting to see how folks embrace the Friday night Stallions games. I suppose, David, you will be there.
Well, I'm one of the directors of the Horsemen, so absolutely I'll be there. And we're trying to get some things already established. You know, we've got tomorrow will be 30 days before the start of the season.
Wow.
So we're going to try to get some things headed and going. So we're counting down to a month for our first game. So
well, listen, we appreciate
to get as many. We're hoping to pack out protected. Friday night, there's going to be nothing going on. Maybe some travel baseball and stuff like that. But there's no reason why people can't come out and fill up that stadium on April the 11th, and let's kick off a home win for that 4-peat.
No, you're right. And listen, you guys do a great job, and appreciate you guys. Some of you have been able to come out to Social Taco on Tuesdays.
Oh yeah, Boomer.
Yep, Boomer and Company. And so we appreciate you guys very much. And I thank you for calling and reminding us about that big home game that Friday night.
Yeah, let's not forget. And also, you know, we're gonna have viewing parties at a couple of locations. The first 2 weeks we're on the road, March 30th, and then again on the 7th, I think it's 6th. We're gonna have viewing parties at local establishments. We'll come out. We'll release those details later on. But yeah, let's keep it rolling. So y'all have a great day. Appreciate you.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much for the phone call. Yes, the Stallions. They got training camps opening up in Arlington, Texas this weekend. So it will be here before you know it. I know Skip Holtz has been on this program. I've seen some press conferences with Skip over the last couple of days, and he's extremely upbeat. They like their roster. So we'll see if the Stallions can do what no other team in professional sports in North America, at least in the contiguous United States of America. I know somebody's going to call in and give me some
about the CFL again.
About CFL bull crap. I'm talking about real American football.
I'm just glad that they're having the game on Friday, because if you remember, I know one of the games we were at last year, it was the same day as A-Day, and it seemed like that maybe had a little bit of a hit on attendance because you had people that were split between Tuscaloosa and some people trying to come back from Tuscaloosa in time for the Stallions game. So, yeah, like David said, you can have a great weekend of football starting off on Friday with the Stallions and then rolling into A-Day on Saturday. We do also have text rolling in 205-834-9400.
Before you get to the text, can I just tell you the latest Adam Schefter tweet?
I would love to hear it.
I'm making sure that this is really, that's him. With Matthew Stafford remaining with the Rams, the New York Giants are investigating a veteran quarterback option, including Aaron Rodgers.
It's not surprising. Wouldn't have to move very far.
Oh.
Might not have to move at all. Hey,
so you just trade like one New York fan base to the other New York fan base for frustrating.
I feel bad for Daboll because I think he is a really, really good coach, and he's just been hamstrung at quarterback his entire tenure. And the fact that he even got them to the postseason a couple years ago, I thought was remarkable. And could have Jaden Daniels as your quarterback right now if you listen to your general manager's kid. But I mean, Malik Neighbors is certainly no consolation prize. He's excellent, but.
So your NFL update for the day, you've got Jackson Dart, who is turning heads at the Combine with his interviews. You got Jalen Milroe that will not run,
Correct.
but he will pass at the combine tomorrow. Bill Belichick will be featured on Hard Knocks, not an NFL team.
Yes.
Matthew Stafford's coming back to the Rams, and now the Giants are looking at Aaron Rodgers.
And you have I guess the hot buzz now is that the Washington Commanders and Houston Texans, that one of them is trading for Deebo Samuel. So those talks have intensified with the 49ers. So it's
been a busy Friday.
Good news day for the NFL.
It's not just Washington, D.C. where the fireworks are going off.
Well, that's good because that's not happening anymore. So we needed something else.
Yeah, their news conference has been canceled this afternoon.
Yeah, that's not happening.
After a fiery moment or two there in the Oval Office.
Some of those facial expressions were...
You could tell Trump was starting to get ticked off. His face turned like beet red.
Yeah.
Like he was getting all wound up. All right, let's go to the text line.
Yes.
Brought to you by Courtesy GMC 205-834-9450.
Absolutely. Y'all been great texting in throughout the morning here. We have, let's see. Okay, Todd texted in. He says, hello, guys. I'm Molly. This is Todd in Montevallo. Haven't heard JR in a few weeks. Has he changed days and times? Yeah, so the last couple of weeks he's been on Wednesday. So he was on with us this past Wednesday, and he gave out his pick was BYU over Arizona State from a couple nights ago, which hit, as well as the Auburn and Ole Miss game there. So, so he'll be back on with us next week. He'll be back with Landrum as well. But yeah, he's just been changing days a little bit the last couple of weeks. But he says, as always, you'll have the best show on earth. So we appreciate those kind words from you, Todd. Let's see. Somebody texting in. They say about the SEC tournament, Wimp put a big focus on winning the tournament and did really well. I think Wimp was like most of the other coaches. If we want to win a tournament, we have a pretty good chance to win this one, but maybe no chance to win the NCAA tournament. Never got past the Sweet 16. If he had not put such a focus on the SEC tournament, maybe they would have fared better in the NCAA. And I do think, I brought this up on Morning Jocks this morning and it's not about one particular coach. It's just, in the past, when you've had teams, was there really an expectation to win an NCAA tournament? Probably not. But now with Alabama and Auburn, that's a realistic possibility. And so it maybe changes how you look at a conference tournament when before, yes, that was going to be the pinnacle of your season was winning your conference tournament. But now we live in a day and age where these teams are realistically expecting to compete and win a national championship. So things there have changed. But, as we shared earlier, Wimp Sanderson and his record, and both the SEC and the NCAA tournament, he did excellent things during his time in Tuscaloosa. Let's see. Somebody is not a fan of Texas A&M. Okay. Can't read exactly what they said, but they do not like the Aggies. Let's see. Kelly texted. He says, coming from a lifetime Auburn fan and alumni, Coach Wimp Sanderson is always a must-hear interview. Love him. I'm sitting in the car at my destination just so I can finish his segment. Love all of his stories and takes. We appreciate that, Kelly. He has excellent stories. And I love how he always gets, oh, y'all don't want to hear about that. Coach, we absolutely,
oh, no, we definitely do.
Absolutely want to hear all of the great stories. Robert texting in. He said, yeah, don't forget number 20 Alabama upset number 7 LSU in women's basketball last night. Alabama has a better chance to host the first 2 rounds of the NCAA women's tournament now. Yes, a very impressive win for the Crimson Tide women's basketball team last night in Coleman. Let's see. Somebody texting in. They say, I hope Yaxel replaces Janai Broom at Auburn. He is certainly going to have a lot of options with Yaxel, and he's done great things here at UAB. Love having him here in Birmingham. Someone else texting in. Somebody texted in, they say, I go to all the UAB basketball radio shows and other UAB basketball events beyond just the games. Yax is a phenomenal player, but he's also an amazing person and so good with the fans. I have gotten a bunch of photos with him over the last couple of years. I only hope the best for Yax's future in the NBA or whatever he does in life. Yeah, if you missed that interview earlier, you can go check it out. JocksFM.com, the podcast section. He was excellent. Yaxel Lindenborg, the star of the UAB Blazers there. All right, Vicky weighing in on some of the college football rule change proposals that Pat covered for us earlier in the day. She says, quote, injured players should not play until a series ends. If a player is truly injured, he would probably need to stay out anyway. So she is a fan of the harsher ruling on that.
Well, I was reading up on that particular rule, And the reason they felt like, because you remember the American Football Coaches Association, they're the ones that made the recommendation of a player being able to sit out the rest of the drive if they were able to get themselves off the field themselves.
Yes.
So the feeling was that the NCAA Rules Committee, they felt like that you were trying to ask a player that may be seriously injured to try to get himself off the field without medical assistance. And so they viewed that giving the 5-yard penalty, taking a timeout away, that was more in line with what they needed to do to try to deter that from happening.
Jake also chiming in about the overtime proposal, which was after or starting the third overtime, each coach would have one timeout they could use for the rest of the game, essentially. And so he chimes in, my overtime proposal, after the third overtime, have each team snapper, holder, and kicker on each side of the field. They alternate kicks starting at the 30-yard line, then backing up 5 yards each time until a team misses. First team to miss a field goal would lose. It would speed things up big time. So that'd be like a football version of what you get with like golden goal in soccer, for example, or a shootout in hockey. It's an interesting idea. Let's see. Somebody asking, do you think there will be a replay broadcast of the spring game available for Alabama? Since if you missed it, the spring game will not be live broadcast anywhere. I'm going to assume not. If you're not going to broadcast it live, I don't think you're going to want to put that film out there for the other football programs across the country to go back and analyze. I could be wrong about that, but I would be shocked if you're not going to have a live broadcast. I don't think you're going to put it up for consumption later. Let's see. Someone asking if the Alabama spring game isn't on TV, will at least be on the radio? I do not have an answer for that. I'm not sure.
I'm looking at the exact terminology that they used.
And to be fair, the person asked about the replay, since they did specify there will not be a live broadcast, maybe that is their way of hinting that there will be a broadcast later. I don't know.
There will be no live broadcast of the event.
I'm assuming that would mean radio as well.
So yeah, the term broadcast would mean it would incorporate both a radio or television. That's just my interpretation. They did not lay out any other specifics. It just says there will be no live broadcast of the event.
Let's see. Somebody brings up another great point. What an absolutely loaded weekend. We were just talking about you're going to have Alabama A-Day on the 12th. They also have cross country going, or track and field going on that morning, baseball and softball in the afternoon, the first Stallions home game that Friday night before, and someone texting in and reminding us that there's also another pretty big event that weekend. That is also Masters weekend.
Oh my goodness.
So talk about a little bit of a conflict of interest there, trying to pick and choose what you're going to tune into. Hope you have plenty of screens, and Molly is just informed us she's going to be in a wedding that weekend.
Yeah, that's the weekend. I mean, I love my friend, but that's my wedding weekend.
How much do you love your friend?
She is my high school best friend.
And
I'm in the wedding.
And she's also spent a lot of money on this, including a trip that you're taking very soon, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money invested in this. So
there is.
I think Molly will be there.
It just clicked that that's all the same weekend for me, though. So.
And then someone asking, I think the SEC baseball tournament is great for the community here around Birmingham. Is it still staying in the Hoover Met?
The SEC baseball?
Correct.
Yes. Yes.
It will be there.
The Hoover Met they're going to be undergoing and making more renovations. It's going to be an even more special place. It's a great venue for college baseball, and the improvements that the city of Hoover has made has been phenomenal, and they're going to continue to do that. We'll get more of your text and your phone calls. This is Three Man Front on Jocks 94.5. 10 minutes in front of the hour, we'll talk to Richard Hendricks at 1:30. Get his thoughts on this weekend's SEC docket. Let's go back to the phones. Ryan joins us next on Three Man Front. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, brother, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I just wanted to chime in on them not televising A-Day and everything. I mean, I think at this point it's getting a little ridiculous. You know, all these coaches have recruited all these guys. It's not like there's some secret players on these teams. Now, I can kind of understand, like, the kid from Charlotte that went to Colorado and now to Alabama. So, like, if you have, Charlottes of the world not televising or wanting to air it or whatever, I can kind of get that. But, I mean, this is Alabama. There's not a kid on the team that other coaches weren't recruiting.
So you don't think it's that big of a – I mean, you think that it should be broadcast or they should at least have a game? Okay.
Absolutely, I do. And I was going to ask y'all what you think about – I know Pandora doesn't necessarily go back into the box with NIL and all this, but is there some kind of great reset coming? Or, I mean, at some point, or we're not going to let these guys that are demanding millions of dollars to go be freshmen at Alabama and Auburn, just let them go to play for the Stallions and give me any Jimmy and Joe and put them in crimson? I mean, that's who, at the end of the day, that's who I'll root for, the uniform, the school.
Yeah, I believe there really will be a course correction, Ryan, in regards to some type of safeguards. There's one thing for sure in this new administration in Washington, D.C., and the way that Congress is now set up, I think it's more inclined for them to set up guardrails and for them to try to give some type of support to an NCAA or a new type of model that Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti's been talking about. And I think at that point in time that there could be a potential limitation on the number of times people can transfer and the amount of money perhaps that these schools are willing to pay for NIL.
Yeah, man, I hope so. It's getting a little ridiculous. I find myself just watching Alabama games, and that's it, whereas I used to, take a whole lot more football in. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Ryan, thank you for the call. Appreciate that.
I did think it was interesting yesterday at the Combine because, a lot of these players are doing media interviews. And one of the interviews that I saw was C.J. Dupree, the tight end from Alabama, who's there in Indianapolis. And he got asked about what he wants to see change in college football. And his response was, quote, "I do think that NIL has kind of gotten out of hand. There's people making too much money. I think it's leveling the playing field, but there still need to be more restrictions than there are now." And so we hear this a lot from coaches, right? And commissioners and things like that. Of course, we talk about a lot in the media, but you don't hear that from players a lot coming out and saying, hey, yeah, this NIL thing, it's working in some ways, but I think we're maybe paying too much to players. That's not something you would think you would hear from somebody that's benefited from it clearly, but somebody that sees that even while he benefited from it, maybe it's not the best system.
Well, unless you get some form of legislation in Washington, D.C., there is absolutely, you're going to lose in court because they're going to say that you obviously are trying to hamper someone's ability to make a living and to make money, even though you might be 17, 18, 19 years old.
It's really funny as we're talking about this. I was just looking on Twitter, and Jared Curtis, who is the number one quarterback in the 2026 class, I just saw a video of him with a brand new sports car, as he is currently being recruited by Georgia and some other places. It's just interesting as we're talking about NIL, and here we have a kid that's still in high school getting his shiny new sports car during his recruiting process. Just interesting how some of these things play out.
So if you do follow recruiting, and I know we talked to Rodney about Booby
Feaster
yesterday, but Bear, now I'm talking about Bear McQuarter, who's a 2026 offensive lineman. He's 6'4", 305. He's from Kingston, Georgia. He was considering Clemson, Florida, Alabama, and Michigan. And he has committed to Michigan.
Man, Dave Portnoy is going to need a new checkbook soon. He's probably running out of those by now.
So a Georgia kid who was leaning towards Alabama, I was told. Florida and Clemson were two other schools that he was considering. He has now committed to the University of Michigan.
Wonder if him and Ty Haywood had a conversation, something along those lines, because that was obviously a big piece of this last recruiting class that left Alabama.
There's a couple of linemen that Alabama was pretty strong in on, and both of them are going to Michigan.
Yeah, and I mean, you did still have Michael Carroll come in, who, according to some places, one of the top one or two, offensive linemen in this last year's recruiting class. But yeah, I mean, that's Look, you don't have to like it, but I mean, I'm going to give props to Michigan, right? You went out and you spent gobbles of money on your freshman quarterback and Bryce Underwood. Now you've gone out to match it and get him some protection for the next couple of years. So, that's the world we live in now. And if they can pay the price for it, they're certainly going out there and getting some very talented guys to try to get things back on track to where they were competing for national championships just a year ago.
We got the fourth hour of Three-Man Front coming up. Richard Hendricks will be one of our guests next hour as we will dive into this weekend's docket for the Southeastern Conference. We'll do some Pat Ponders as we wrap up the week. We'll take your text, your phone calls. One more hour to go on this beautiful, beautiful Friday. May not be beautiful for some people.
It's beautiful to me.
I think it's a great day. It's very beautiful.
Well,
Here in Birmingham.
I was referring to.
Oh.
We're far away from that, Pat. We're enjoying things here in the wonderful Magic City.
Landrum will be back with us on Monday. We will have a live report from Tuscaloosa on Monday as Kalen DeBoer will meet with the media as they practice at 8:30 on Monday morning. And then he will meet with the media at 10:45. Another hour to go. Keep it tuned right here to Jocks. We've got a great weekend of basketball to follow. Tomorrow, right here on Jocks 94.5, you can hear the Auburn Tigers, the number one team in America, taking on the Kentucky Wildcats live from Rupp Arena. The Alabama Crimson Tide, they will be up on Rocky Top taking on the Tennessee Volunteers on Sunday over on Jocks 2 100.5. Pregame show starts at 2:30. Tip-off at 3 o'clock as the UAB Blazers, coming off an 80-72 win last night in Wichita against the Shockers. They're going to take on the Memphis Tigers with first place on the line as UAB solidly there in the number 2 position in the American Athletic Conference as they will take on the number 1 team, the Memphis Tigers. Also, announcement today that Alabama's A-Day game, which will be on April the 12th, it will start at 12 noon. It will be free admission. There will not be a broadcast of the game.
Yeah, and we had somebody chiming in and asking, a couple things. First, do we think there will be a replay of the broadcast in the sense of after the game's over, will Alabama go and post that on their website or YouTube or something? I would assume not if they're not going to broadcast it live. And then somebody also asking if it's not going to be on TV, are you going to be able to listen to it on radio? And based on the statement they released, we would assume that is not going to be the case. So if you want to see the A-Day game or hear the A-Day game, you're going to have to go down to Tuscaloosa on April the 12th. But the good news, Pat, is that it is free admission if you do attend.
Yeah, and there's plenty of great activities going on in Tuscaloosa that weekend. And, of course, Friday night, you've got the Stallions playing at Protective Stadium. You've got all the A-Day activities in Tuscaloosa. That is also Masters weekend and Molly's wedding weekend.
Well, not my wedding.
Well,
but it's a wedding I'm
part
in.
of the
Oh, it's
wedding.
not?
No, it's not.
Well, I have a gift to return then.
You know, that's odd because you could care less about her health last weekend and now you're buying her wedding gifts. Makes no sense.
No, it
You
really
have no
doesn't. I
consistency.
think he's just a little confused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a lot going on last weekend. I had to, make sure that I was safe because I'm top priority. And then y'all,
Well, I'm glad you're okay.
are
Like
somewhere
I've
in
been
the pecking
saying,
order.
I
I know, and I appreciate that. And now,
Yes.
I look like the bad guy. And
Well, let me tell you something.
I've been the bad guy all week, though, so it is what it is.
You better represent the brand because you're doing SEC Mike's podcast a little bit later.
Oh boy.
It's going to be fun. I can only imagine the things that he will have to say about Alabama, both football and basketball, and
I'm sure there'll
some
be
recent
glowing
comments from Kalen DeBoer. And we're gonna have a good time.
All right. So speaking of Kalen DeBoer, you have been watching the Fox Nation. What's it called again?
Tides that bind.
Riding with the Tide. What's it called?
The tides that bind.
Tides that bind. Riding with the Tide or floating with the Tide. Well, that was like a cruise a couple years ago.
Sure.
Something like that. All right. So episode 2. And episode 1, they concentrated mainly on the Georgia game.
Correct.
And you heard Kalen DeBoer mention HE double hockey stick.
Yes, he said his dirty word, and the players went crazy in the locker room pregame, trying to get everybody fired up. And but yeah, the first episode was essentially, it started with it had a little bit of the Nick Saban retirement and him getting to Tuscaloosa, but it mainly focused on the Georgia game and how dramatic that game was, and essentially starting it off with it looks like Alabama's going to be just fine without Nick Saban. And then you get a little bit more. They do a little behind the scenes stuff with, some practice footage. They had a very, very emotional story about a young boy who unfortunately passed away from cancer that some of the Alabama football players had gotten to visit with in the hospital, and his family came to practice. And it was very emotional. It gave you a lot of good perspective, I think, on some of the players and some of the ways that they go above and beyond that we don't see, in our day-to-day, just things that they go and do inside the community. And then this week, it shifted more of the focus to, it went through the Western Kentucky game pretty quickly, spent a little bit of time on the USF game and some of the frustrations that came from that. But a lot of it really went into Caden Proctor was a big focus of it, as well as Wilkin Formby. And so it went into a lot of Caden Proctor and, starting off with Nick Saban retiring, him kind of explaining, I came here to play for Nick Saban. Nick Saban left. I didn't know really what to make of that. And I just felt kind of lost at that point in time. So he wanted to go back home to Iowa. He shared some interesting tidbits about Iowa and what was the story that we had where he didn't have a parking spot or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
After he had gone back to Iowa. And he dove a little bit deeper into that and how he just said he really felt like the offensive line and the team as a whole in Tuscaloosa, was like a brotherhood, and he felt so close to all of the players. And then when he went to Iowa, he said he just didn't really relate. He couldn't connect to anybody. He felt like he really didn't have any friends on the team. He did say he didn't hear a single time when he was a part of the Iowa football program, nobody ever once mentioned championships, winning a national championships, playing for a national championship, just the expectations.
It's Iowa.
were drastically
say, it's
different.
Iowa.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a coach that has fleeced the athletic department.
Yes.
Because Iowa has never finished in the top 5 ever under Kirk Ferentz. And the offense has been brutally bad. That doesn't surprise me in the least. I'm surprised that Caden Proctor stayed as long as he did at Iowa.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we all knew, right? Like going to Iowa, okay, do you want to be the big fish in a small pond? Which he would have been the highest rated recruit in the history of Iowa football. I think he's the highest rated recruit ever to come out of that state. But yeah, I mean, he just said the standard was different. The way that the players talked, the way that they held each other accountable was just not what it was at Alabama. And ultimately, he said that he realized he made a mistake. He called Coach DeBoer, apologized for not giving him more of a chance to kind of get to know him and before he made his decision, and said that Kalen DeBoer welcomed him back with open arms. And he's happy to be back here. You got to see very cool. He essentially said that Wilkin Formby was a major part of why he came back because they seem to be best friends. I believe they room together. They live in an apartment or something together down there in Tuscaloosa, and how, Wilkins Formby's family has essentially become his family since he's so far away from Iowa. And it went into, Caden Proctor getting hurt at the beginning of the season and battling through that leading to Wilkin Formby playing in the USF game where he did not play great. He would be the first one to tell you that, I think. But yeah, he did not play great. And then the reaction to that from the fan base of getting death threats and all these horrible things that were being talked about with him on social media, and how he tried to overcome that. And it was a very cool look at that. And so it was a very good episode. You're kind of riding high, like, all right, we're getting a behind the scenes look. We're going through the first couple of games. Okay, yeah, USF maybe didn't want to revisit that, but it was a win. We're moving forward. And then at the very end of the episode, they move on to the Vanderbilt game. And safe to say the episode doesn't end on the highest of notes, because we all know what happened there at Vanderbilt. And it kind of just leaves on the note of, all right, well, we showed you the highs of the season with Georgia and how excited everyone was. You were the number 1 team in the country. And then now they end the second episode with, all right, well, this is the other side of the coin. This is Kalen DeBoer. All right, you just beat Georgia. Everybody loves you. Now you lose to Vanderbilt, which nobody in their right mind would have ever predicted to happen. And now how is he going to respond to that? And so I assume, they're just going to keep moving forward in the season with the next episode. But I think it's been very well done. Obviously, if you're an Alabama fan, I think it's worth checking out, just getting to see some more behind-the-scenes details of things that you wouldn't before. I will say this. I think easily the standout, and it was mainly in the first episode, but you see him a little bit in the second one too. What you've gotten to see of Jamarcus Shepard, the wide receivers coach, I would run through a brick wall for that man. Watching him and the way that he motivates his team and his players, and the way that we've heard about that stuff, and we've heard reports of, other coaches saying, hey, can you maybe come and, get my players riled up a little bit, because he's such a great motivator. And that was very cool to see. And you can see why he was held in such high regard coming over from Washington with Kalen DeBoer, and why he is viewed as, maybe alongside Brian Hartline, the new offensive coordinator now at Ohio State, as the best wide receivers coach that money can get you in college football right now. So it's been very cool. Definitely recommend going and checking it out. I'm not going to blame you if you want to wait until the whole thing comes out, and then you can just go and get a 1-month subscription and kind of binge the entire series. But it's been pretty insightful. So cool. It's not quite like Hard Knocks. You don't get that much of a behind the scenes look, but if you're an Alabama fan, I definitely think it's worth checking out.
All right, well, let's do some Pat Ponders on this Friday, brought to you by Courtesy GMC. Brought to you by Courtesy GMC and Trustful. Visit their online inventory at courtesybirmingham.com. All right, so if you were the San Francisco 49ers, would you give quarterback Brock Purdy a long-term $60 million per year contract, or sign Aaron Rodgers?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I would sign Aaron Rodgers. I do not think
Really?
Brock Purdy. I am not paying Brock Purdy that much money. It is a great story. It really is. And I hope that he has a great career the rest of the way in the NFL. I don't think you can win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy.
See, I would take Brock Purdy. Just with all the baggage that Aaron Rodgers comes with, and he's old.
But you only have to deal with it for a year or two,
Yeah.
and then you're able to restart and draft somebody else, or maybe there's someone else you can
I guess
trade
that's
for.
true.
But to give Brock Purdy that amount of money,
That's just a lot of money. Yeah.
Again, great story. I don't think he's one of the.
you don't think he's the future of the Niners?
No, I mean if you
No.
want to win Super Bowls, honestly, no, I do not think that he is. I don't think he's I don't look at him as one of the top 12, 15 quarterbacks in the NFL. I just don't think he's there. He's good, but he's not great. And the 49ers are an organization that really wants to win a Super
Yeah.
Bowl. And they've gotten close with Brock Purdy and Jimmy G. So if you can upgrade at that position, I mean, seriously, it's pretty remarkable that they did that, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Is Jimmy G still dating?
The adult entertainment star?
Yeah.
No, I think
I don't
I don't
know.
think he dates them. I think he just,
Oh,
I think that's just his
Mm.
weekend routines. He is I did forget though. He is I completely forgot. He's Matthew Stafford's backup. He's on the Rams.
all right. Question number 2. How much should a player's performance at the combine outweigh their actual game performance when evaluating their potential?
I mean, I don't think it should.
No.
I think at the end of the day, whatever your body of work is from your time in college, that should carry much more weight than what you do at the combine. Because, and again, I know, we just have a fascination with certain things, right? I go back to the Al Davis days with the Raiders, and it was widely known he got guys who had the fastest 40 time, and they had so many picks that were bust because they went for guys that had great measurables, did great workouts at the combine, and they were viewed as a reach in a lot of ways. We've seen that
Yeah.
from the Raiders even more recently with his son. So I think the combine's great. I think it can help you if you're already a good player with a good body of work. It can boost you up, but I don't think that you should take what you see at the combine over what you saw from their career in college.
No, I agree. It should be, what you saw on the field in game, obviously high pressure situations. I think that's way more important than, a couple of measurables at the combine. Not that they're not important. And like Conrad said, they can help boost you, but it shouldn't be a priority.
Yeah, and I don't want to be a downer, but I look at Jalen Milroe as a perfect example of that, right? I think he is a guy that is built for the combine. Granted, he's not running the 40-yard dash for whatever reason, but he's got a big arm. He's really good at throwing the deep ball. Not as good as past year, but he's good at throwing the deep ball. He's fast. He's strong. He's very personable. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to test well at the combine. But
Right.
you can also go and look at the film, and it's pretty obvious what his weaknesses are. And I wouldn't let a good interview at the combine or, how many times he can bench press 225 pounds supersede what we've seen the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Question number 3. The NFL announced they will use Hawkeye technology to measure first downs. Does the pursuit of perfect officiating through technology enhance or detract from the essence of the game?
Again, I think in football it enhances it because it is a game of inches at times, literally.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I said a similar thing the other day when it came to baseball, right? I like the human element in baseball. I don't necessarily need that in football because it
No.
is a game that comes down to, you have a certain distance that you have to go, and I want that to be as accurate as possible when it's called on the field. So, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, if it'll help the accuracy, absolutely. I think it's a great thing.
What about you, Pat?
I think if its technology is there and you
Yeah.
can do it in a expedited way.
Mm-hmm.
I hate what's going on in college basketball. The last 2 minutes of a college basketball game.
It's crazy.
It's horrible.
It's just brutal.
So I'm curious. So do you have, I guess, look at it similar to me with baseball? Like, do you like that human element in baseball with the balls and
Absolutely.
strikes as opposed
Absolutely.
to
I
in
do
football?
too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of people that probably feel that way.
Yep. All right, next question. So earlier this week, it was reported that 2 famed NFL reporters almost came to blows at the NFL Combine. Now, I've covered SEC football media days for 32 of these, 32 SEC media days I've been a part of. How many verbal altercations do you believe I've witnessed personally or I've been associated with between media members at SEC football media days? I'm
Pat-
going to give you some choices.
Okay, good. It's like
I'm going to give you some choices.
I was going to say, if it was going to be on the field after or before a game, it was going to be in the double digits probably. but-
infinity.
Yeah.
Option 1, none. Option 2, 3 or less. Or option 3, 5 or more.
Okay, so it's not 4. That wasn't an option.
How many verbal, I didn't say physical, I said verbal altercations do you believe I've personally witnessed or I've been associated with between media members?
I'm going to go 5 or more. I mean, considering your Feinbaum days.
That's kind of where I'm going. And we
Yeah.
know Pat's a little chippy
He
sometimes.
can get chippy.
You know? I'm going to go, yeah.
He likes to stir the pot. I
Which
think
also
it's
makes me
5 or
think this is a
more.
classic Pat question. The answer is going to be 0. But I'm going to go with Molly. I think it's going to be 5 or more because in the Feinbaum
Is that
days,
your final answer?
Yes, 5 or more.
Yes, 5 or more.
Actually, it's 3 or less.
What?
Would you like to share any of them?
Yeah.
No, not publicly.
Oh.
Okay.
You
I
can
will-
tell us at the break.
I will privately.
That surprises me.
Have you witnessed a physical altercation?
I have not.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
No, I have not. Verbal altercations, there's been 3 that I have personally witnessed or been associated with.
How many happened in a coffee shop?
0.
Okay. Well, that's new territory there for the
Yes, very much so.
the NFL.
Well, I do appreciate you guys thinking that, 5 or more.
Well, you said how many years have you been going?
This will be my 33rd coming up.
Right.
Yeah, so okay, that's not once a decade you get a
Yeah,
verbal
that's
altercation.
fine.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, so let me
They came
ask
in
you
bunches,
this.
though, when it happened.
Okay, so
Oh,
of the
no.
3,
Of the 3. How many was I personally involved with?
correct.
1.
I would love to hear that story.
I
One
would-
of the 3.
Okay.
I was
That's-
young. I was young.
Do you regret it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Absolutely
Well, there you
not.
That's a good answer.
And the person that I got into it with, it will
Are y'all cordial now?
absolutely,
Okay.
very much so.
Good to know.
Very interesting.
Mhm. I will share that during a break.
Maybe this July we'll get to 4.
We can only hope. Let's hope. Let's hope Atlanta has fireworks galore.
That's right.
All right. So yesterday we did not do ponders. So I had this question lined up. So I find it fascinating. So I want to get your take on it. Yesterday was National Chili Day.
Ooh.
Should chili be classified as a soup?
No,
No, I don't think so.
it's its own thing. It's its own
Yeah.
genre of food.
I agree. Yeah.
I understand why it would be a soup. I look at it like this. If you think chili is a soup, you're probably the same person that argues that a hot dog is a
Same.
sandwich.
I was thinking that exact
and
same
I
thing.
understand where you can make the argument, and I'll listen to it. But no, chili is not a soup. It is its own.
chili.
Yeah, it is its
Yeah.
own thing. Do you consider it a soup?
No,
Okay, good.
I do not.
I will say this. I would be more willing to admit or agree with chili being a soup before hot dog being a sandwich, though.
Yeah,
It's closer to that.
maybe.
That is today's Pat Ponders, brought to you by Courtesy GMC and Trustful. Visit their online inventory at courtesybirmingham.com. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Richard Hendricks from the SEC Network. This is Jocks 94.5. 1-800-239-WJOX, the courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450. We will open up the phone lines. We've got a few minutes before Richard Hendricks joins us at the bottom of the hour.
Well, once again, want to remind you about a great event going on up there in Huntsville tomorrow, as Wallace State will hold a ribbon cutting ceremony tomorrow at 12:30 to celebrate the new synthetic turf field at Bailey Stadium up in Huntsville. Festivities will include a cookout and free game admission. They would like to extend a special invitation to all former Lions players, as well as alumni, family, friends, as well as you, the public. That's 12:30 tomorrow at Bailey Stadium up there at Wallace State, Huntsville.
All right, let's go to the phones. Don joins us here on Three Man Front. Good afternoon, Don.
Hello, happy Friday to you, to my friends. How is everybody?
We are doing fantastic. Hope you are.
Well, Pat, the reason I wanted to call in, I was telling Molly on the phone when you mentioned the Open Stallions game. I need to give you an update about the big tailgate, and as much stuff as I do, Pat. And let me ask you a question: in your fraternity, was your social chairman called Epsilon?
My social chairman was called what?
The Greek term Epsilon.
I don't remember what our social chairman. I don't recall them being called anything except just, hey, he's the party
planner.
He's the party dude, and hey, line up some good mixers with some sororities.
I'm kind of Boomer, and my horseman kind of made me the social chairman for our group.
So you're the party planner.
Yes, sir. And, I'm planning all of our parties in March with you guys at Social Taco, too. Yeah, working on a lot of things, but a tailgate.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Don, do you do bar mitzvahs or do you plan weddings on the side as well?
No, somebody did kid me a long time ago, Pat. When I was in my 20s, I should have been a wedding planner. Everything, but no, we're running club stuff, and hey, thank you for what my friend at Stakeout made that graphic I sent you. That looked nice, didn't it?
Oh, it looked very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, but anyway, my friend, we'll talk about that when it gets closer. But on the tailgate, everything's a go on it, and everything, and I'm working on a few things. I already got 3 restaurants doing it, but let me give everybody the details real quick. But that's a Friday night, April 11th, and I talked to Boomer about this the other day. You know how Boomer is. He's going to get down there at 3 o'clock and help set everything up. But the official start time for the tailgate is from 4 o'clock to 6:30. It's bring your own beverages, but we're going to have a limited amount of food, while it lasts. But it's going to be in that, they call it the green lot. It's that gravel lot right there by Top Golf.
Okay. Gotcha.
Everything. And I hope all you guys come to it, and all my Jocks family, I want y'all to come to it. And to the listeners out there, I need y'all to do me a favor and show up with us at Social Taco and celebrate the First Lady of Jocks' birthday. Good old baby. Baby's a great lady, and we call her the First Lady of Jocks. So everybody show up to Social Taco on Tuesday at 11:30.
That sounds great. And that April 11th is going to be a very busy weekend. As you mentioned, you've got the Stallions. Oh, yeah. And then after you get through with the tailgate and the Stallions, then Saturday morning, Don, you'll wake up early and head down to Tuscaloosa for the A-Day game. So that's going to be a great weekend. Thank you, Don, for the call. I appreciate you calling so much, and have a good weekend.
Yeah, he dropped off. He must already be trying to get down there to Tuscaloosa.
He's trying to reserve his seat now.
Reserve his spot on the quad.
Yes.
We love Don.
Absolutely, Don. That was just us having a little fun.
So somebody did text us in about your Pat Ponders question, and my head has been spinning since I read this. So you asked us if chili is a soup, and we all said no.
Right.
And I brought up the comparison of, well, some people consider a hot dog a sandwich. So somebody texted in and said, so what is a chili dog then?
Oh, wow.
These are the kinds of questions that we need to be asking, and that is an excellent question. I really don't know what to make of that, but yeah, a chili dog is
mind blown.
I'm going to call that a conundrum.
A conundrum?
Yeah, I'm going to call that a conundrum. I don't know what else to make of that, but yeah, that's an excellent question. That'll get the gears turning for sure.
Richard Hendricks is going to join the show in just a couple minutes. This is the 3-Man Front edition for Friday, February. What is today? The 28th.
The last day of February, Pat. Tomorrow's March 1.
I thought this was leap year. Is this not leap year?
No, it's not.
Tomorrow's not leap year day?
It is not. So no birthdays for the leap years.
where they only get to count every 4 years.
That's right. Keeps you young.
Very much so. Can you imagine Don at an A-Day game? Would they allow him in, Bryant Denny?
Probably not.
Would you go to A-Day with Don?
No, I do not want to do that. I think Don's great, but I don't think that's an environment that would. I don't think that would be great for him. He might not make it out of there alive.
I think Damian should go to A-Day with Don.
We could maybe set that up. We need to do that and get a like a GoPro or something that we can attach to Damien, and he can
stream it live.
Do a live stream.
Yeah.
Of on the YouTube channel for Jocks TV, and they can just live stream a day in the life of Damien and Don in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Because they've already done Auburn.
Exactly. It's only naturally fair that they would go and do it in Tuscaloosa.
Hey, I've got a great idea. I'm going to call Paul. I'm going to get in touch with some of the SEC network folks, and we can do the Don Damien show, and they will travel to every SEC venue to see a game. And, we'll get them a conversion van, and they will drive around the SEC footprint, and it will just be the, a day in the life of Damien and Don.
I think that would be excellent. I would watch every
I think that
episode.
would be an Emmy award-winning show.
I would tune in every episode. No doubt about it.
Who needs the True South show about food? We need Damien and Don to travel the Southeastern Conference.
Well, and they can eat some food. They can throw that in there a little bit, give their reviews of, whatever spots they stop at each college town. But I think that's what the people need, Pat. That's what people want. Let's be honest.
Yep. All right. Richard Hendricks is going to join the show in just a couple minutes. This is Three Man Front. It is 1:33, Jocks 94.5. We just have another incredible weekend of SEC basketball. And joining us now on the Buyers Ride Hotline from the SEC Network, famed Alabama basketball player Richard Hendricks joins us here on Three Man Front. And Richard, first off, you might have had the game of the week this week in Norman, Oklahoma. That was let's start there. This Oklahoma team, it looked like they were about to go ahead and punch their ticket to getting off the bubble and being one of those SEC teams solid into the tournament. And, man, Kentucky came out of nowhere. Just your thoughts on what you saw from that Sooner team.
Yeah, that was a huge opportunity for Oklahoma to get a signature win when they needed down the stretch in front of a national audience. But I tell you, Otega Oweh in Kentucky had different plans. He took over the game in the second half. The offensive attack of just using his physicality to get to the basket and will his team to a victory. It was one of the most phenomenal finishes I've ever seen. I think he scored the last 18 out of 19 points for Kentucky. I would compare that performance that Otega Oweh had in that game similar to what LeBron James did to the Detroit Pistons, I believe in the 2008 NBA playoffs, when he just put that team on his back on the way to that 09 finals run, scoring the last, I believe, 25-plus points in the fourth quarter down the stretch. It was unbelievable to watch.
Richard, I want to get into these games this weekend, but before we do that, I do want to ask you, you being a former star player there in Tuscaloosa, what is it about going to Tennessee, or really just Tennessee as a whole? I know, their defensive identity, but this has been a really, really difficult matchup for Alabama here in recent memory. So I just wanted, from your perspective back in your playing days, was there something that stood out about going to Rocky Top that just made it a particularly difficult place to play? Is it the fans? Is it just the way the arena is? Is it just really the style of play that we get from Tennessee, especially now under Rick Barnes?
Yeah, as a player, of course, it seems like there's an extra whistle that always comes out of nowhere when you're down there. I can still remember in 2007, we had a game one. I pulled a rebound that would have sealed the game in the final seconds of the game and given us the last possession, and there was a foul that was just called out of the middle of the nowhere. They looked around to see who fouled it, and they pointed at me, said I pushed someone in the back, and I was by myself. It's those moments that they have that Alabama, for some reason, just can't seem to get over it. But Tennessee, when they're in there, they play spirited. They play great defense. They're gritty. They're going to play to the edge of the foul. And, there's a saying a lot of times in basketball that, if you foul, 20 times, they're going to call 20 fouls. If you foul 40 times, they're only going to call 20 fouls. and that's the level of aggression that they're going to play with. Alabama's got to do a really good job of getting out and having the lead in front, playing with some physicality, and not allowing Tennessee to dictate the tone of the game, because it's going to be a tough, rugged type style, and that's how the Vols get it done.
Has it impressed you, Richard? I know this is a loaded question in regards to the Auburn Tigers, how this basketball team has played at this level. And I know there's been a couple of games where it's been tight at times, but they have just absolutely dominated the opposition. And how do you keep that level of intensity? But I guess that goes with having a coach like Bruce Pearl to kind of egg you on each and every night.
Well, that's exactly where it starts. You have to have a head coach who's a master motivator, and Bruce Pearl has been able to do something. The biggest thing for Auburn is that they have in their back pocket the disappointment that they felt last year in the NCAA tournament, getting ousted in the first round to Yale. That's something that this team with so many returners definitely has to have, not just in the back of their mind, but in the front. They've been motivated all season long. They dropped a couple of games to some really good teams, but at the same time, they have all of the pieces to quite frankly just run the table. They played high-level basketball. You have a player with Janai Broome who commands a double team that no one can seem to stop. He does a great job of taking his time and playing with patience and spreading it out and finding the shooters on the outside. But their positional size and experience allows them to play defense without over-rotating. And when they're able to do that, they can smother teams. They can play in a slow-down tempo. They can speed you up and outscore you. I think the only team that can stop Auburn will be Auburn. If they can stay motivated, if they can stay healthy, and they cannot get fatigued with the course of the season.
So, Richard, I want to get your take on their opponent this week in Kentucky. We spent some time talking about them this week, and obviously, you just talked about the incredible game they had against Oklahoma, but you got Lamont Butler back. I know he fouled out in that game, but Lamont Butler coming back is big for them. You got Jackson Robinson, who came back, but now it looks like he's banged up again. So what do you really make of this Kentucky team, and a team that started off the season 14-3? Now they're 5-6 in their last 11 games, but it seems like they might finally start to turn that corner and start getting healthy again. So where do you kind of look, how do you view Kentucky right now at this point in the season?
I think they're dangerous, and I think they're dangerous because of the fact that they are getting healthier. Jackson Robinson obviously had to step out of the last game. The wrist was still giving them some problems, but it's something that I believe that organization knows that they're just going to have to deal with down the stretch as a matter of pain tolerance. But if they can get healthy, what has happened with the injuries throughout the course of the year is has established more depth, experience, and confidence in that roster. And you get Jackson Robinson back, who's a phenomenal shooter on the outside, Lamont Butler, who can set the tone from the defensive end and allow the team from the offensive side to run the show. They now have the versatility to play with the traditional point guard in Butler, and also they can give it to their point forward, Amari Williams, and let him initiate in that Mark Pope 5-out offense, which is a juggernaut and hard to stop. But if they're really going to get things done down the stretch, if they're healthy, it's going to have to be on the defensive end. They're going to have to be a team that's going to be willing to play high-level defense, grind teams out, and finish out possessions with rebounds. If they can do that, that's going to be a dangerous team that you don't want to play in the postseason because they will be a little bit more rested than some of the others.
So this is a very fluid situation in this conference in regards to the bubble teams. Let's go there. Arkansas seems to be trending in the right direction. You just saw a bubble team the other night in Oklahoma. In your opinion, who's in the best shape of those teams right now that we consider bubble teams?
Well, I would probably have to say Arkansas, just off the fact that they're coming off the win. Oklahoma, you missed a massive opportunity to get a home win over Kentucky. You'll be going on the road at Ole Miss, and obviously it's a really good team, but that gives you an opportunity to get a quad one win and a road victory against a team that's going to be solidly in the NCAA tournament. But Arkansas is starting to play better. They've had some injuries. You lose Boogie Flan. It's changed the tone of your team and how you play. You've had other players step up as if Ivanovic Ivicic and what he's been able to do, the 7'2" Croatian guy. So the roles have changed for Arkansas, and they're starting to settle in them. It's just going to be a matter for that team. Can they make shots from the outside? Because physically, they are just as impressive as any team in this league. They can go toe-to-toe with you. They can guard at multiple positions. They can protect the rim, and they can finish at the basket. So I think Arkansas is a much more dangerous team right now than Oklahoma.
I want to ask you, Richard, about another team that's kind of there in that bubble category. It's a team that Arkansas beat in overtime a couple days ago. That's the Texas Longhorns. They've now lost 5 of their last 6 games. And when you watch them, I mean, obviously Trey Johnson jumps off the screen. He's so impressive, but you go to that Arkansas game and you're like, man, he drops almost 40 and you still aren't able to get a win against another bubble team in Arkansas. So what do you kind of make of Texas at this point? Is this a team that, because of how good Trey Johnson is, if they can find a way to get into the tournament, that you think they're going to be dangerous, at least in that first weekend? What do you make of Texas right now in their recent skid?
Well, I think Rodney Terry has a tough job. And obviously when you have such a good talent as Johnson is, that makes you a little bit easier to guard. The tougher teams to play against in a basketball game are teams that have balance. And you know that when you're playing Texas, Trey Johnson is going to take the majority of the shots. The offensive game plan has to be to slow him down. And when he has the high point productions, many times that's going to take away from what you can have as far as the balance from the rest of the team. So it's a tricky, balance that Terry has to deal with about holding a star player in a position where he can obviously thrive, but also to get something out of the team in a synergistic way. So Texas has got to figure some things out down the stretch. But the good thing for them in the SEC is that you always have an opportunity in this league in this year to get a big win down the stretch that can help improve your NCAA tournament resume.
I know it's fluid. It changes all the time. But as of this moment, Richard, where's the sweet spot in your opinion in regards to the number of teams the SEC ultimately will have playing in the NCAA tournament?
I think the sweet spot's got to be around 13. I think LSU and South Carolina would obviously have to win the conference tournament to get in. But if you look at the bottom that are fighting, Georgia, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, because they're all fighting for bids at the end, I think one of them could potentially knock someone out. I think Vanderbilt getting that big win at Texas A&M solidly puts them in the field. They have some opportunities with some home games against some more of those other teams that are fighting for the bubble spot. Mark Byington has his team playing confident basketball, but I think people have been saying all year long, 14 teams. That's 14, and that's 2 out. I think the sweet spot's going to probably land on 13 just because of all of them being on the bubble, and it's just going to be hard to justify a team that could potentially have maybe a 6-12 record in conference play or whatnot. It's hard to justify that making to the NCAA tournament.
Richard Hendricks, former Alabama basketball star. Currently, you'll hear him broadcasting for the SEC Network and ESPN, joining us here on Three Man Front for a couple of more minutes. I just wanted to ask you, Richard, and I know this is a difficult one. This is kind of, I guess, a hypothetical. But looking at what you just talked about with how many teams we could potentially get in the tournament from the SEC, right now, if you had to take a guess, how many SEC teams would you expect to make it out of that first weekend and get to the Sweet 16? And I think it's a fascinating question because of how brutal the SEC has been this year. I think you're going to have a lot of teams that those first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament, they might be playing the easiest games, Richard, that they've played since December.
Yeah, and I'm going to be interested to see in a field of so many. If you do get 13 or 14 teams and they're seeded, how many of them are potentially can be playing pretty soon, potentially in a second round game. I don't know how that's going to work out as far as the seeding is concerned, but I would think with as many in the field, it's a possibility that it could happen, that you could run into a SEC foe. But if it's 14 teams and you're trying to make it to the Sweet 16, I think the SEC could have a good opportunity to probably have 7. I'm going to split it down the middle if you do go with 14, 13 and 14. It's 7 of them, and I'm going to go with the top ones. The NCAA tournament is always about a draw, and if you can get the matchups that you need, but Auburn, Florida, Alabama, and I'd say Tennessee, those teams are really good teams. They have great positional size. They're well coached. They play strong, and they played with a lot of confidence. I would kind of think those 4 right there would definitely be able to make the Sweet 16. And then the next few, you want to talk about Texas A&M and Mississippi State. Those 2 teams I definitely think could turn it on and be tough to play. And Missouri as well, who's playing good ball with Dennis Gates. I think those 7 would be the ones I would lean to.
That is Richard Hendricks, does an outstanding job covering the SEC for the SEC Network, former Alabama great down in T-Town. Richard, always appreciate your time on the radio station. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely, and can't leave Kentucky out of that one as well. Listen, the league's so deep, it keeps going on and on. My goodness.
Hey, it's a little bit different than when you played in the SEC, right? I mean, when there was like 4 or 5 teams?
It was 5 teams. We had 6 teams to make it my freshman year. All 5 of the 6 won on the first day. Florida and LSU went to the Final Four, and Florida ended up winning back-to-back national championships. So for me, everyone talks about how strong the league, but nothing matters unless we have the team on top at the end.
There's absolutely. Hey, thanks, Richard. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks. That is Richard Hendricks joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. When we come back on Three Man Front, we will put a bow on this week's edition of Three Man Front, and the point spreads have just been listed for Tennessee, Alabama, and Auburn and Kentucky. We'll share those with you next on Three Man Front. Apparently, our idea for the SEC Network show is not going over very well.
Well, we'll just have to go over somebody's head.
Yeah, I had it all lined up.
Isn't hard to do. You just kind of put your arm out, and there it is over the head. But
yep. You know, I meant to ask Damien when he was in here if he was taller than Ian Rappaport.
it's a good question.
How tall is Ian?
Not tall.
About 5'2".
Really?
He's not tall.
I didn't know that.
I've learned a lot about him this week, thanks to Pat.
Yeah, I mean, Conrad had no idea that he was the Alabama beat writer.
I did not know that. I didn't know he worked at the Birmingham News.
He sure did. Lived in Tuscaloosa. Mm-hmm.
And now he's
getting in fights in a Starbucks in Indianapolis.
I mean, with the former CEO's son too. Like maybe that's why Schultz felt so confident in bowing up. He knew that he had the Starbucks
Had the
front office in his on his side.
back pocket.
Yeah.
If you're a homeowner, you need to protect the largest investment you have, and that's where APS can come in, because water can get into that basement. They can get into your crawl space. And the APS crawl space encapsulation system, it can stop water, it can keep pests out. It can also lower your energy costs. The engineers at APS will design a custom solution for your home. Crawl space problems don't get better over time. They get better when you call APS 205-951-9717. For the most challenging issues around your home since 1977, APS has been able to take care of you. 205-951-9717, or visit their website at alabamaprofessional.com. So FanDuel has just posted some college basketball lines for tomorrow if you're interested. Let's play the game here. Alabama at Tennessee. Set the point spread, Molly.
Alabama at Tennessee. I'm going to say Tennessee's a 3-point favorite.
3-point favorite. How about you, Conrad?
5 for Tennessee.
5 for Tennessee. According to FanDuel, Tennessee is currently a 3.5-point favorite.
Oh,
There you go, Molly.
so I would win because I hit the under.
All right,
That's
so
right.
Auburn is at Rupp Arena. According to FanDuel, what's the point spread, Molly?
I'm going to say Auburn's I'm going to go with 2-point favorite.
2-point favorite. How about you, Conrad?
6-point favorite for Auburn.
Really?
Auburn is a 5.5-point favorite.
Still hit the under.
There you go. Let me go back to the Alabama game.
This was the Price is
quickly.
Right. You're killing it.
I'm
Molly.
killing it.
So you heard the amazing stat earlier that no Nate Oates team at Alabama has ever scored over 74 points
Against Tennessee.
That's
against
crazy.
Tennessee. It's a crazy
So
stat.
there's your magic number, 75, baby.
Mhm.
So what do you believe the point total is for that game?
For total, not for Alabama, just the whole
just
game.
a total for the whole game.
139.
Ooh, I was going to go 140.
155.5.
Really?
I would still win.
That's right. You would have
Technically.
still win.
So they're
That
anticipating.
surprises me, though.
They're anticipating.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
more higher scoring than
Mhm.
we've seen in the past. Well,
And if Chaz Lanier is hot
yeah.
and
That-
Alabama gets it rolling, then you most definitely. But
I just go back to that Auburn game. They barely cracked 100 for the game total. That style of game would not bode well for Alabama, I don't think.
some other SEC games tomorrow. Ole Miss is a 7.5-point favorite at home over Oklahoma. Arkansas on the road at South Carolina is a 1.5-point favorite.
Okay.
Duke is a 24.5-point favorite against FSU Dave's Seminoles.
Think Duke's going to be able to handle their business.
I think they'll be fine.
Maybe not like the Miami game, but yeah,
No.
they'll be all right.
Missouri at Vanderbilt. The Missouri Tigers are a 1.5-point favorite
That's going to be such a good game.
I know. I'm excited.
in the Music City. In Florida, Texas A&M, they need a win bad. And they're an 8.5-point underdog.
Ooh.
They're at the former O'Connell Center, whatever they call it now. They have a sponsor.
That'd be a heck of a win for A&M.
It would.
Mm-hmm. So there's some lines that are making its way in the Vegas world. So on Monday, Landrum will be back with us after his trip. Conrad's going to be in Tuscaloosa on Monday covering the first day of Alabama spring practice. He'll be also covering the Kalen DeBoer presser.
But they're not playing a game, everybody, so it's fine.
I'll say, let's
Nothing
hope they
bad's
don't
going to
lose.
happen. They're just practicing.
You know what's going to happen? He's going to walk into the football office building, and there's going to be a picture of him. Like, do not let him in
This
the building.
man anywhere. near.
0.
Tuscaloosa in general. Just keep them away.
So we'll have a recap over a very busy weekend, including Alabama-Auburn on Saturday. Don't forget about UAB. Big game, 3 o'clock, Bartow Arena, pack Bartow. Take the family down there. Might be tough getting a ticket, but it'll be well worth your time. It's going to be a great atmosphere, great game between the two of the best teams in the American Athletic Conference.
Doesn't Tua go back to Tuscaloosa for the first spring practice every year?
Oh, that's what you're hoping for?
Oh, no.
All right, I'm just spitballing if somebody wants to pass that along to him, if he's not doing anything on Monday. That'd be pretty cool.
We appreciate you tuning us in each and every day from 10 until 2. The Paul Feinbaum Show is coming up next. For Molly, Conrad, Landrum on assignment in Colorado, I'm Pat. Have a great weekend, everyone. Keep it tuned right here to Jocks 94.5, your home for Auburn basketball tomorrow afternoon and UAB basketball on Sunday on Jocks 2. Have a good weekend.